Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to open up June's meeting of the Conservation Commission. Did the members get a chance to review the minutes of February 22nd?
Yes.
If they noted no error, if you noted no errors or omissions, I'll accept the motion to place them on file.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a continued notice of intent to raise an existing home and construct a new single-family dwelling from Brian and Kelly Kelly at 335th Street. They have requested a continuance. We got that from Jeff Andrews at Wetlands Preservation, Inc., and it would be my recommendation to grant the continuance.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. We have a continued notice of intent to increase the height and lot coverage of an existing single-family home from Julie Ostrander at 75 Old Point Road. She has also requested a continuance. She's waiting for a response from NHESP, and it would be my recommendation to grant the continuance.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to now go to the Town of Newbury Main Street Bridge. We have a notice of intent to make repairs to the bridge spanning the Parker River at Main Street from the Town of Newbury. Good evening.
Good evening yourself. I'm gonna try to limit my wisecracks. Good evening.
It's going to be a short night, Ron.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I'm gonna try. You wanna talk about what? You want me to do what?
Yeah, we go.
All right. The bridge has its problems. It's carrying a gas line on the western side, and it would appear like there was somebody huffed and puffed, they could blow that gas line right off the bridge. It's very serious. Jane's got a contractor, a designer to put drawings together. They're in here, it's a little hard to read, but the drawings for the bridge itself are not really as pertinent as what we're doing around it. The bridge itself, if nothing fell into the water, would be a total non-project, non-problem. The trouble is stuff does fall into the water, and there is a requirement in the drawings and the specs that they have total control over anything falling into the river. And we have put in the notice the requirement that not only the state's engineer approve whatever the contractor does. The state typically lets the contractor figure out how he wants to do it, get a better price on it. But the state gets to approve it. The way this has been written, the Conservation Commission, gets to approve it also. So basically it's a debris net that will be hung off pair of posts on each side, slung underneath the bridge, because the bridge itself is going to be a mess. So there's nothing much you can do hanging onto the bridge. The plan is to remove the asphalt, the base gravel, and mine the deteriorated concrete that's under the base gravel, and then patch that, and then lay precast concrete sections that have curbs on them that are ready to accept the handrails, and on the west side, brackets for the gas line.
Well, that comes all one piece.
Pardon me?
That comes one
Well,
curbing and
the
that.
mechanical part is gonna be separated later. I can't imagine they're gonna try to put that on in the precast joint. They could put the rail on, I suppose.
No, I didn't mean the rail, but I meant the curbing and the decking is all one
This
piece.
is the bridge. You've got one piece like this, another piece like that, another piece like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Another way to do it, since the span is so short, is just have spans like this, which would mean you'd be opening up the bridge entirely. And I think we can understand why the engineer chose to do it this way, because that would make far more of a mess for the river than the way they're doing it, the way they proposed it.
So the only place we're getting near the water is when you relocate the gas line temporarily. How does that get relocated?
Well, probably after one of those trucks to do this. You know, it's a bucket truck that can get back under. I would expect to be a cherry picker that would sling the gas line off the new bridge. And the guys that are working it would be probably, wouldn't you guess, working off of not a standard
I
bucket
think
truck,
they're actually gonna
but the kind that does
put a
this.
piece of steel across temporary just for setting.
They could do that
Yeah,
too, yeah?
that's-
Is that what they
that's the
think they're
plan,
gonna do?
yeah.
So there's no
Oh.
standalone A-frames that go in the water, they're gonna support it with the bridge while they're doing the bridge, and then when they get the far side done, move it over?
I don't think there's gonna be anything in the water, is there?
No,
No,
just
I'm not aware of anything.
in the water.
The work near the water would be the work that James is gonna do in, chipping out the bad stuff on the abutments, especially the wing walls.
And that, yeah, go ahead.
And that is in the notice, we showed the scheme. The idea is to have a curtain of fabric that is secured at the bottom, so anything he chips out will fall on him. And then the usual, combination of silt fence and hay bales around, it'd be a two-sided thing that goes back to the upland portion.
And that's as close to the water as we get.
As close to the water we can get. I haven't been there lately, is that,
It's getting better.
is it really? Yeah, that's good, because it was almost impossible to do the way it was a week or so back.
Yeah, a question on the gas line. So the gas line remains basically as it is, just suspended in a different way?
James, you know better.
Yeah, it's gonna be still hung off the bridge, new brackets, but it will be on the other side. Because right now it's the upstream side, so if the river did come up and stuff floating down would hit
A big log would impact.
whereas on the other side, it actually gives the gas main some protection.
So then you gotta go back under the street.
Yeah,
Somehow.
they're gonna be in the road though when they cross.
They tried to directional drill that some months ago.
Yes,
And
and
it was
failed.
unsuccessful,
Yeah.
yeah.
But what was it? Was it hit,
It's too much rock, yeah,
You know, it's Byfield.
yeah,
It's just too much rock.
I feel gravel.
I know it's had to give up on it, but.
yeah.
Any other
So
que-
that's about it, you know.
any other questions from the board? Are there any butters here? Would you like to speak?
Hi, I'm Jerry Heavy, I live at 43 Main Street, the little house that the bridge actually goes under. And when is this work gonna be done?
Well, we need to get our notice of intent before it can go out to bid, so hopefully it'll be going out to bid the first week or two in July, so sometime probably mid-August, if we're hoping.
Okay.
That's not a guarantee.
Okay, and are you also going to repave the street, because that street, before it hits the bridge, it's been patched, but the patches they're cold patches. And I know that they just did River Street, so are they gonna repave Main Street to where it's nice and new?
Yep.
Okay,
But we have a drainage project going on upstream a little bit too that needs to get finished first.
okay. Is that the drainage to prevent the black ice in the winter? Because there's a culvert right before you get to the bridge at around 44, and it's extremely dangerous because the water, literally when we have any kind of rain or snow or melting, it will melt, it cascades again, across the road, and you have black ice in the winter. So it's extremely,
Yeah,
extremely
but when the
dangerous.
road's repaved, it'll help that too, because the road will be crowned to the edges. Now you got a big canoe where all the traffic and the water gets trapped in the canoe.
And I know on several occasions they've tried to clean out the culverts, but it's still, the black ice still comes back every winter. I mean, what is being done on
Well, the
that?
drainage is all the drainage is being done should fix
That'll
all
fix
of
that?
that. Yep.
Okay. And also, my septic system crosses the street and goes up to my leaching field, which is at the hump on the even side of the street. Will they be sure to flag my septic? Because I certainly.
Yeah, I believe National Grid's already has a set of plans and everything about your
Okay.
septic system.
Okay, all right, very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good luck.
Would anyone else like to speak? I'll go back to the board if there are any more questions.
This isn't really a Concom question, but is there any chance you can widen the bridge even a wee bit as a part of this? No.
Not gonna happen. Good try.
It'd be nice.
Good try. Any other questions for the applicants? Then I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll move we accept this presented.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Same to you. Somewhere. There we go.
Chuck waves, so I guess you passed it, right?
We have a continued notice of intent to replace an existing shed from Kevin Fisk at 23 Southern Boulevard. Is anyone here to represent that project? This is at least the third month and maybe the fourth month that it's been since they've filed and notified us that they weren't coming in. So it'll be a requirement that they re-notify their abutters and place a legal ad in the paper. So it's my recommendation to the board that we drop this from the agenda without prejudice.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We have a continued notice of intent to construct a driving range from Eric Sorensen at 131, 133, and 151 Scotland Road, DEP number 50-1243.
And I got it.
Absolutely. Good evening, guys. Good evening. How are you?
Bear with me a second, get this out. How's that for everybody seeing?
Works.
Okay. We'll jump right in. Mike Novak from Meridian Associates. We're here to present to the continued public hearing. Wanted to quickly run through some changes that we've had due to informal meetings with both planning and board of selectmen. Our official meeting with a joint meeting actually with board of selectmen and planning is next Tuesday. So just to give you a little background on where we stand on the permitting process. When you saw this plan, or you saw this project about a month ago, I went through existing conditions again, Scotland Road. This is the overall site here, close up of some of the areas that we're going to be doing the majority of the work. Along here, existing house, existing driveway, right on the northeastern edge of the property. We've got about, it's 26, 27 total acres. Varying topography, tree coverage, so on and so forth. We've got a couple different resource areas. I'll just point them out here real quick. We have a non-jurisdictional, jurisdictional wetland. Those were determined by a previous ANRAD motion. This particular wetland here was also part of that, but it stopped at lot 2. As part of this final, we've flagged and continued that, and we've also identified a smaller wetland in this area as well. Jump to this is where the majority of the new construction is going to happen. Again, this is the northeastern side of the lot. This was the existing home here and existing drive. So essentially, we have a 40 stall driving range, 30 artificial, 10 natural grass tees here, larger area here. Obviously, to be able to move the tees around so we can keep the grass in good shape. Associated parking. We have a pro shop here that will also serve ice cream as well. That is partly why the parking is a little bit larger. We've used some existing models to determine that need. Mainly Sun and Air and Beverly. It's been one of the ones we've really focused on because they have ice cream and driving range. We'll also have the chipping and putting area up in the front. That will be a members only type of situation, so that won't be used by everyone. There'll be a membership availability. That's part of our special permit, so this use will be more of the regular members. Associated stormwater and grading, obviously we're subject to Mass Stormwater Standards. We have catch basins, deep sump catch basins, water quality inlets, dynamic separators, an infiltration basin to meet that requirement. We're also proposing a water feature, which is essentially just it's going to be a pond. But it's not going to function as a stormwater pond, it's just going to water feature, something to draw the eye, golf course, water features, sand traps, it just goes along with it. And also, if needed, down the line, if we're finding that there's issues with irrigation, we'll use that as a backup for irrigation as well. Certainly, I don't want to let it know, we're gonna do that 100%, but, it'll strictly be from the water here. Want to jump to the, this is the plan you originally saw. Wanted to give you an overall feel of it, just to refresh everyone's memory. The entire site with an image behind it. Again, we have the jurisdictional wetlands with 100-foot buffers. We did not show a lot of grading and just general idea of target greens prior, and we also have a very tight limit of work line along the edge. That varied from 20 to 25 feet. I just, again, wanted to show you the difference as we've moved forward. To make a quick list of the changes, just to kind of hit the bullet points, and a lot of these were a direct result of both the informal meetings and Eric's many meetings with the butters without letting him touch on it. A couple things I did want to point out to you is that the natural tea area moved a little bit, but the size remained the same. The septic area was going to be under this parking lot. We brought it down to here, still outside of all the jurisdictional areas. The biggest change is we've added some additional grading, both existing and proposed, to give you an idea of what it's going to look like. The idea is to have a semi-flat area for the driving range. We are proposing to fill approximately 3,200 square feet, 3,190. Of this non-jurisdictional piece, we're going to grade that out. We're going to use all the rock that's going to be on site to support the slope, replanted grass-wise around it. Excuse me. And additionally, we're going to do a pretty tight 3-to-1 here as well. If riprap's needed, I think we can do it without, but if it's needed, again, we'll have plenty of rock on site based on the soil testing to support that. We're also going to propose I think it's going to be about a 15-foot, it's either 15 or 20-foot fence, mesh fence, like you see in the driving range. But the thing is that because of the elevation changes, you actually won't see it. But the idea is to keep the balls out of the wetlands, so nobody strings through. He doesn't have to have his staff going picking through wetlands for golf balls. So hopefully everything will collect the fence, and again on the other side too, because that is just a hole. We've adjusted and enlarged the target green areas, we've graded. One of the other bigger things I'd like to point out is we've added, pretty significant I think, to the buffer. You have a 75 plus or minus, 50 plus or minus. We've kept the entire 100-foot buffer back here intact, and 70-foot plus or minus. And I say plus or minus because 70 is the tightest point, it varies from there, but those plus or minus numbers, those are the tightest points in the buffers. The majority of this construction area, relatively unchanged. Some minor adjustments. I think we did actually lose a parking space, but that was about it. From there, I think we do have a landscape plan as well that I will just quickly show you. The intent of that was, again, to address the butters' comments and selectmen and planning in terms of screening from street and screening from the butters. We've left the natural back here, so I don't think we need anything up there, but we've tried to fill in some gaps wherever there are some gaps remaining here for this abutter, and using low-lying bushes and some taller grasses to really screen. The look from the screen again, we're at elevation 25 here and 70 here, so a 3-foot bush is actually going to look like a tree from way out there. That's the majority of the changes. I'd like to turn it over to Eric real quick, just so he can talk about the abutters meetings and put it back to the overall.
Okay, so a couple things. Did meet with fire chief in the meantime, and he did like the plan, got his feedback, which was all positive. I met with the abutters a couple times, got their feedback, which did change the plan, as Mike said. We brought in the buffer zone here. We met with the neighbors on the left and the neighbors behind multiple times, got their feedback, and made some changes to the plans to accommodate them. So it's a work in progress. We are working with them, hopefully, to get their approval for the project and be a good neighbor if this goes through. One of the things I did want to ask the board for the consideration is a seasonal business, but more importantly, there is a small growing season for grass, which we do need for this. So there is a small window, late August, early September. So time is important in this. So just ask for your consideration when obviously voting for this. Other than that, Mike went over pretty much everything, the changes and the plan.
Entertain any questions from the board or public?
Any questions from the board? I had two issues. You addressed one of them with your fence around that wetland. And the other one was, I would love to wait for Joe Soroka's,
Yes,
stormwater.
we haven't heard anything, so.
Yeah, we haven't either.
Okay. Eric was gonna follow up with that, we kinda wanna get through tonight, and then we were gonna see if we could find something, out before Tuesday. And obviously we'll address whatever we can before then, but, yeah, we just, I have nothing, I have nothing.
And that really, that's the only reason
We
that
didn't get the
I'd like to
DEP.
keep this hearing open.
I don't know if you saw the DEP comments.
I did.
Yeah, there weren't any.
Yep,
And-
no,
And the
no.
Heritage letter, I think, were a copy.
I got a copy of the Heritage letter also.
So those were two
There's
check
no
marks.
tape down there, so
Right.
you're good with that.
Yeah, so I think we're at the mercy of that,
I would agree at this
Yeah.
point. Are there any abutters here? Would you like to speak?
No, Deb Carboni, 123 Scott Road. We've been working with Eric on this, and we have nothing to say at this time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
I'm the butter, Laura Hanlon, 167 Scotland Road. I had a question about the stormwater management, but if that's what you just noted that you were waiting on, I don't have a lot of expertise in that matter, but my concern in that area was that if there's a whole bunch of clear cutting done on this very large parcel, in rendering a lot of that land impervious to absorption of rainwater, I'm just concerned about how that affects the supply of water on such a large lot and how it would impact the neighbors. But is stormwater management, and also the effect on the quality of the water with that clear cutting, but perhaps when you get that report, and that might answer those questions for me.
It's gonna be peer reviewed, so, I hope those questions are answered. They are gonna take some trees down, replace it with grasslands, a little different curve number, but I'd love to wait to see what Joe's comments are. Thank you.
if I could add though, that we are capturing and treating all the impervious that we are at. And again, like you said, the only difference is the treated grass.
Now, at the last meeting, you made a comment that you said you came close to the 100-year storm. You still with that, or did you contain 100% of the 100-year storm?
You know, and Eric had mentioned that, I'm not 100% sure, I didn't get a chance to look at what I said, so I'm not gonna try. I think, if I had to guess, the issue or the statement was about this water feature. In the 100-year storm, there is some small flow up. Everything else is contained.
I get you.
But we are
Okay.
still meeting pre-post is in terms of that wetland being a design pool.
I'm glad you clarified that, because I misinterpreted
Yeah, I
that.
think that's what the issue was, because I was looking through the report today and I found that there is a small flow. I think it's 0.9 CFS that comes out of the overflow in the 9-inch storm. Everything else is contained.
Any other,
The fence goes all the way around the wetland?
This fence here?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are stopping it pretty much parallel to the property line here. The thought is the directional, the greens are there to kind of get everyone to hit that direction. Not everyone can do that, but the thought is any kind of slice, at some point, it's not gonna turn this year. And don't forget, we also are leaving all the natural buffer here for trees and everything, so certainly,
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about balls hit beyond it, is
Past
it
it?
gonna be graded so the balls would roll back down?
yeah, and there's fencing on this side as well.
Well, oh no, so I was wondering if that fencing is actually necessary or not.
The thought is because it's such a steep slope,
Yeah,
I'd rather have it there just, again, so we're not traipsing through the wetlands. If it doesn't get used, I'm happy, but I think it's just a precautionary at this point. And again, it's not gonna cause a visual impact.
and what's the spacing on the fence? What kind of fence is it gonna be?
It's gonna be a typical driving range fence.
I don't go to driving ranges.
Okay, well, it's a mesh fence, small, I mean, you probably
Yeah,
should talk to that.
It's not, I mean, I think it's, off the top of my head, it was 12 or 15 feet, so it's small, but because the elevation changed,
Yeah.
you won't see it.
Oh, no, I was thinking
But
about
the
height,
fence
I was thinking more like the spacing.
Oh, just a golf ball can't go through it, it's pretty
Yeah.
small,
Yeah, but it's a flexible,
it's flexible.
it's not a.
No, it's more, I mean, the importance of wetland habitats isn't just that it's a wetland, it's that it's a habitat type for all sorts of different creatures, so in a way, fencing around, if you're fencing around the entire thing, you'd be worried that you're basically making that hard for any wildlife to,
I thought of that,
enter
and
and
that's,
exit,
that's
but-
why I did stop it on both sides, so that we do have, the complete other side is completely accessible.
yeah, exactly.
And I've kept natural grade on this side as well, so hopefully that doesn't deter too many wildlife.
Are you gonna, what kind of plantings are you gonna have around it with the grading coming down?
In theory, over there, on this side, it would just be the grass.
Yeah,
the
just
grass.
natural.
Yeah, natural, and what's the mowing sequence on that is not a lot,
Yeah, once a week, we have fescue blend, so it's
a hardier, thicker grass. certainly will not look like a green, like a manicured.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? I would like to hold this over to the July 18th meeting. What kind of squeeze does that put you? Not that that's the consideration.
No, but we appreciate you
What-
asking.
Yeah.
I mean, I,
When do you meet with the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board?
Next week.
Next week.
From tonight,
Have they done a site visit yet?
to our, well, they haven't scheduled.
They haven't scheduled.
So they'll likely do that,
I would imagine, yes.
and then schedule a meeting on the other side of that.
Yes, we're hoping to request another joint meeting to keep things moving, but I don't know what their schedule will allow.
What are the appeals process to those, each of those,
Those are 20 days.
20 days.
say 20 days or
Yes.
10? So even holding this over, we're not gonna be very far off them anyway.
Not if, not
By the-
yet,
by the
most likely
sounds of
we'll end up
things.
a second meeting, and no, we won't, and ideally, we've addressed all the peer review comments before we come back to see you.
That would be perfect, yeah, if you could get Joe's,
Yeah.
Joe's take on the stormwater and then have it ready for the next meeting, it looks like we could likely come to some kind of decision at the next meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I think, I mean, if that's the board's purview, that we're fine with that, I don't think there's much we can do otherwise, without having that.
So, it would be my recommendation to the board that we continue this hearing until the 18th of July, I think, yeah, the 18th of July. All those in favor? Aye,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Mark that one up simply because it was hard to see for no other reason. We have a notice of intent to construct a single-family home from Jessica Knight and Nicholas Lyon at 35 Low Street. Good evening. So what are you gonna do? What are your plans?
We are going to construct a single-family home, just like you said.
Would you like to speak to this? Can I grab this back from you, or no?
So the plan of, you can see on the plan that our septic's out front as far away as we can put it. It's gonna be a raised system, it's about 4 feet out of the ground. Which puts our foundation up about 7 on top of it, puts us at 17 feet. So it's gonna be a slope in the front up to the house, and then we're gonna grade it flat out back and kind of keep the existing grade that's already existing. We're planning on doing hay bales along the 25-foot no buffer zone. Our well is 100 feet away from our septic, and it is out of the no build zone, out of the 25-foot zone. What else? Our driveway comes in through here, through the pink that you can see there. And yeah, and this is the home. The home's 28 by 36. This is a 10-foot by 14-foot bump out off the back. There'll probably be like a 3 seasons kind of porch closed in, maybe a 4, working on all that.
Is the well in?
No, it's not,
Okay.
yeah.
And the only thing I noted on here, I think I wrote the well, a little bit of protection around that
Yeah.
well, that radius. So you'll need some type of slurry pit there, which will either be a hole and or some hay bales around it and somewhat of a horseshoe, or your well driller, if you're gonna hire one, should have some details, some generic details on that you can let the commission have.
Mhm.
The only reason I did these is because they were hard to see, I think it was a septic plan.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's any other options for this lot. You put your septic system where it has to go, given the conditions, the house is uptight and behind it. I really don't see any other options for this lot. Are there any questions from the board for the applicant?
Yes. May 2nd, it was approved by,
Board of Health?
yeah, Board of Health.
Any other questions? Are there any butters here? Would you like to speak?
I just wanted to make sure.
Please just, we're being recorded, so just please give your name.
Okay, my name is Robert D. I live across the street from 35. So I'm at number 40. And, let's see, I know that property has been for sale for many years. And numerous people that have come and looked at it have tried to do, like perk tests and the like, and have done it, and it's always failed. Now, last year, we had, record drought, and I guess now it passes. I just wanted to make sure that this has all been, under.
Well, I know enough Title V to get into trouble.
Yeah.
But having said that, I know that they have changed the criteria for which you can perk a lot. They greatly expanded it.
Okay.
The signs that are in the soils, when the soil evaluator goes out there to take a look at, for the purpose of Title V, they'll dig a hole in the ground and they'll get right in that hole and they'll read the signs in that hole.
Mm-hmm.
Those signs generally take upwards of 5 years to make a change. So 1 year of drought or 2 years of 40 days and 40 nights really isn't going to matter much when it comes to this type of thing. As a matter of fact, many times now where they have to dig so deep to get into acceptable soils, those soils will go to a lab and get perked in a lab. They won't even be perked on the site anymore. So it is somewhat different, the systems are somewhat better, and I certainly defer to the Board of Health for anything more technical than what I've just told you.
Okay, fine. Yep. I mean, that's really my only concern. Just something I would warn the owners and builders here is that also that curve right there is very sharp and cars tend to come around it very fast. So I would recommend being really careful about where you put the driveway.
We very much considered that. I grew up across the street from
Right.
this spot, and I wasn't allowed to go around that corner on a bike. So, so we put it before the corner, and we've set it back some from that corner, so we're not there. And hopefully with the grading and
Damn you, hot
landscaping,
top. And once
it'll clear it up, and you'll be able to see
septic
around
goes
that
in all
corner.
day.
Sure.
We definitely thought about that. 'Cause it's-
Sure, I'm sure the town has standards, on that anyways, and I don't know what they are, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
something to watch out for.
Highway takes a look at curb cuts.
Yeah.
There's a big radius to that road right there, and that's why cars can carry speed around that corner, so.
Yeah.
It makes it easy to carry speed, so you're right about that corner. Would anyone else like to speak? Yes.
J.R. Colby, 31 Low Street. I just want to say the topography and soils in that neighborhood are all pretty similar, the homes around it, and I look forward to having a neighbor over there. I think it's a good fit for the size of the house. I think it's a good fit for the neighborhood.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Don Walton, 78 Hanover Street. I think they're a great fit for the town, and I'm all for it.
Thank you, Don. Would anyone else like to speak?
Deb Carboni, 123 Scotland Road. Great idea. Welcome to the town.
Sounds like you have a lot of support. Congratulations. Anyone else like to speak? Any other questions or comments from the board members?
Wells inside the no-build zone and right tight to the noticer. Is that what I'm saying?
It's right on, it's not in it. I made sure that he didn't put it inside. Oh, it's because when he set the septic design guy, when he put in his soil suck, he put it at the 35-foot zone. I'm planning on pushing it back to the 25-foot zone, away from the wetlands, so that it will be in between the two. It is close, and that's why we talked about the slurry pit, to protect it when we do the well?
Actually, we have a 25/50. 35 doesn't, I don't know where it came from, but it doesn't matter. It's kind of immaterial for this purpose.
It's in the buffer.
Yeah, and it's unwritten, so we like to keep that, but we're an old community, so it's nice to be somewhat flexible when
What
we
does
have.
an old community mean, Doug?
It means that, I'll tell you what an old community means. It means that because of the lack of planning in the 16 and 1700s, we have a lot of structures that are right up next to our wetlands,
What
that
year
are
is
close
it
to
now?
wetlands. And it's the year 2017, so we have methods by which we can protect from those short-term impacts. And I would certainly consider that well a short-term impact as opposed to having the house back there, which would be a longer-term impact.
Okay.
So for me, that has no impact on that wetland unless one of the board members wanted to show that that well would maybe have a direct impact on, or a lasting impact on the wetland.
I wouldn't, depends how deep it is, connectivity and everything else.
Would you like any other information on that? It's your,
Alright,
yeah, we're equal members here, I'm not the boss, so if you
Yeah.
want something, just please ask for it.
yeah. What are you have plans for the well already?
I don't have the plans already for the well. I talked to the abutting neighbors just to kind of feel them out. The guy next door, which his well is about here, if you were to continue down the line. His well is 200 feet deep, it's an artesian well.
Great.
So that's kind of where I was going with my idea for the well. I figured that is like the least impactful, it's a pipe in the ground. That was my initial goal on that.
Does that satisfy your
Yeah,
additional information, or you
Yeah, no,
satisfy
okay.
your curiosity?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, all right. If there are no other questions or concerns from the board, then I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Move we accept it.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. And the only thing that I'm gonna want from you, or the board needs from you, would be the detail on the slurry pit on your well.
Okay. Send that in.
There is a 10-day appeals period. It starts the day after the postmark on the envelope that we send the decision out in. We will keep your decision here. You can pick it up when you're ready. We'll have that written on the envelope. We'll send one off to DEP, and that's actually where that number will come from, that date will come from, DEP's envelope. So it's 10 state working days, no weekends, no holidays. So just about 2 weeks after you receive the decision, you could come in and we can sign off on your building permit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? The only thing I want,
That folder,
what's that?
you guys need to get butters.
That's what she's gonna give up right now.
That's right, Terry.
This one.
We're actually, there's no more work in this, there hasn't been any more work in the.
Would you like to ask for that? I did speak to them relative to that comment that you made, so
Okay.
would you like to expound on it, or?
No, I didn't know
Okay.
if you followed up on it or not.
Yeah, no, Nick and I spoke about it.
Okay, cool.
Getting just a little bit ahead of themselves.
Okay, okay. It's a lot easier to work before the leaves come out.
Yeah.
I don't know, me, I was always dead
I
last.
didn't understand all of everything.
Yeah, don't worry. I live right down the street, I look forward to seeing you.
Okay, cool, yeah, see us walking loops, we do loops.
Yeah, I see me with my son.
Yeah.
No, I'm just here.
All right.
Little town. Yeah, have a good night. What you need to say, you know? Alright.
We have a request for determination of applicability to construct an above-ground pool from Josh Nealon at 78 Main Street. Good evening, Josh.
Hi. Yeah, so
Tear sheets of the, thank you. What do you got?
we want to put an 18-foot round above ground pool in our backyard, which abuts the wetlands behind Main Street. Pool, I think, is going to be 60 feet away from where the wetlands start.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And That's it, there's more.
Yeah, it's not very complicated. It's a pool and a lawn surface in a backyard, more than 50 feet out of the buffer, away from the wetlands.
You've visited the site?
No, I have not visited that site. Only with my map have I visited that site.
Is this your?
Yes.
It's really faint, but you can see where he's marked the pool out right here. And he's got a hay bale line right here. And he's got wetland resource that starts right about in here, right just behind the structure. The lawn's right up to the edge. But it's difficult to see.
We're on
78 Main Street.
what's the wetland? Freestanding wetland?
BVW.
Is this a fence?
Yes. It's just a flat panel fence with no spaces in between. Yeah.
Seems like that will keep any construction.
Yeah, he's got his hand. Did you get what you needed?
Yeah, yes.
It's great. Any abutters here? Would anyone like to speak on this project? Any other questions or concerns from the board? I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
To approve it, and you're the
All those in favor? Aye. Same spiel I gave the last folks as far as the 10-day appeals period goes. So it's the day after the postmark on the envelope that we send it out in.
Okay.
So about 2 weeks. It'll be on the envelope. We'll give you a call when it's prepared, and there'll be a date on the envelope. We'll pick it up.
Okay, good. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Have a good night. We have a request for a determination of applicability to tear down an existing deck and rebuild a smaller deck from Clark Watkins at 11 Melody Lane.
I'm here to represent
You here to represent him?
Yeah.
Okay, well, come on up, please. You want to use his plan set? Well, I do have all the plans, but I'm gonna leave it up to you for the most part to represent the project. It's relatively simple. Did he tell you what he was doing, or did he just throw you out here?
He was busy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But, I lived in a camp afterwards, he's a realty, Plum Island Beach Rentals. So he's removing an old deck
Mhm.
and replacing it so it's safer. It didn't have railings currently, so he's fixing everything and making it new.
Okay. I spoke to him also, and he said he was gonna be away. He's putting this on diamond piers, and it is somewhat smaller in size. Not a great deal, but somewhat smaller in size. So with the reduced footprint and the diamond piers, that's why I recommended that we review this with a determination.
Okay.
I've looked at the project. I want to give the members enough time to take a look at it if they have any concerns. Are there any butters here? Would anyone like to speak?
July, but everything is in the same
Everything's gonna be in the
place.
same place, as far as I can tell. Just change you a couple inches this way.
It didn't change much, I forget what the square footage was, but it was a pretty low square footage.
It's a decrease of like 20.
Yeah, it's just a small amount.
But it
25
is
square
a
foot,
gain.
smaller deck, same location.
But it's a gain at least, so I think that's the one.
Unpainted wood, diamond piers. Any additional questions? Then I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll move we accept it as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. We're good?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Moving right along tonight.
Oh, Jesus, Jim. We have a request for determination of applicability to construct a porch and stairs and grade for a gravel parking lot from Mike and Pam Jameson at 185 Middle Road.
Evening, everybody.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, how are yourself?
Fine, thank you.
My name is Ryan McShara. I'm here from Red Barn Architecture. I'm the architect on the project. So, as you guys can see from our site plan, we are within the 100-foot buffer zone here, as laid out by Donahoe Survey and Mary Rimmer, environmental engineer. So what we're proposing within the 100-foot buffer is the stairs down off of a covered porch. Those land within the 100-foot buffer, and then some regrading in this area just to the west of the shed, the existing shed. So what they hope to accomplish here is to add a little bit more parking to that side of the shed. Other than that, all the activity will be outside of the 100-foot buffer. I did bring an architectural plan if it would help you guys to see what's going on with the architecture in that area.
Thank you, that tells me everything I need. Mary did stop in this morning and asked if there were any questions. I spoke to her this morning. I don't have anything for the applicant unless members of the board has a question.
Which is the 100-foot, this is the 100-foot.
Your 100-foot is a double hump going through Jimmy's got his right index, left index finger almost on it, yeah.
And is this a tree line here that's sort of scallopy?
Exactly, yep, that's the existing tree line.
It's just all woods from here down?
Correct. Yep. And this marches all the way down to Route 1, which is, I'm not sure exactly how far away it is, but quite a distance away from the property.
Any questions or comments? Are there any abutters here? Would anyone like to speak on the project? I'll go back to the board one last time.
Have you been in communication with Greenbelt? Is there a butter?
I'm not sure if we had, I'd have to get in touch.
There would be no requirement
Yeah.
to get into, it's an RDA,
Yeah, they're not
so.
here, and Mary did it, so.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
I suppose, if they fail to make that connection, that's their problem, right?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
Okay, I hear you. I didn't put that together right away.
Yeah. So.
If there are no questions or concerns, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
For a negative, for me?
All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Ben? You?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not, there's not an NOI, so they didn't have to know.
Yeah, there is no requirement
Right,
to notify
it's an
about
RDA,
Yeah.
right, so, but, so, yeah, but I think had Mary not done it,
Never would have happened.
I mean, one of God's babies, no,
I don't,
no, you,
I didn't get asked on this one.
yeah,
Yeah. She's the professional, so she made her, mind up that way. So.
yeah, absolutely. I'm still feeling things out. Not the first visit.
I am too. So don't feel bad. Yeah, tear sheet.
Ooh, I don't.
Joe, I should ask you for that about 10 minutes ago. Who has the tear sheet?
I would guess Mary.
We will find for this then contingent upon you returning that tear sheet. If we get that tear sheet, we'll release this. If we do not, this will not be a public hearing and we will bring you back in next month.
Completely understood.
Okay.
We'll get that right into you guys.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
See?
There you go.
I got you guys. So. We have a notice of intent to conduct campus maintenance according to the buffer zone management plan for the Governor's Academy at 1 Elm Street. Hello, how are you?
How are you?
Good. Yourself? Good evening. How are you?
There's no DEP number yet, as of 3 o'clock this afternoon. I do want to, they received it on July. So, my name is Wendy Reed, I'm a contractor at the Academy, permanently assigned there to manage their wastewater treatment plant. Tom Woodruff is the director of building and grounds, I'm sure you know, and Matt McDonald is the grounds crew supervisor. So this NOI is for a buffer zone management plan, and it's intended to cover ongoing maintenance, routine stuff that's already happening, like mowing and trimming in the buffer zone, as well as some minor projects that the Academy would like to do. So it's strictly in the buffer zone, there's nothing planned in the wetlands. And the way that we went about kind of organizing this, you can imagine it's kind of a big plan to pull together. We divided the campus into 5 areas based on the wetlands features, the use of the areas, and then the intended activities. And that's just based on the DEP wetlands map that you can get online. And then so the plan has a text description of each of those areas, and then in the appendix is the actual BMPs that we're going to use for, for mowing or road maintenance or plowing and so forth. So that's kind of the general approach. Also in the plan is a training. We did a training back in April for the whole D&G crew. Just what is a wetland, what do you have to do to comply, what's a buffer zone. I mean, really, I think people want to do the right thing, they just haven't been informed about, what the wetlands.
Just give me information.
Yeah, and everybody's been very positive, and everybody keeps asking, well, can we do this? And, so there's really a genuine interest in doing things correctly. So that's a big reason for the plan, is to just get it down there so that everybody's doing things consistently and as times.
As I looked through it, the only thing that really glared out at me, a lot of this, you're right, it's routine maintenance stuff, it's the stuff you do every day, and the stuff that you can get yourself in trouble if you don't have this behind you. You've got a storage area way down by the marsh, by the other side of your turf field down there. What's stored down there?
A storage area? Stockpile?
Stockpile, yeah.
It's grass clippings. When they mow the lower fields, they've just been storing grass clippings there. That's been done. If it's an issue, they can stop doing it. We put it in.
Usually we take grass clippings and we put them in the lowest spot we have, which is generally wetland. If it's out of the wetland and you've been doing it on a regular basis, then I don't believe the board would want to move it. But if it's something that's kind of new and ongoing, maybe it should go somewhere else.
No, it's old. In fact, part of it is already turned to compost. And it's not in the wetlands. There's actually a grass, probably 20-foot pathway kind of that goes between it and the wetlands. ago, and the new stuff is being added on the field side, so there's nothing being added on the wetland side.
Okay. As long as that stays that 20 feet or that you maintain that setback, then that shouldn't be an issue.
Would it be helpful if we put some sort of a sediment control or?
No, I don't know that you're getting a lot of leaching on it. If you don't notice it, then you're not. And likely the sediment control would just kill anything that's underneath it, so, in this case, we might be better off without it.
And typically, organic things like that act as a sponge anyway and draw that water in.
It's also in a wooded area, so there's some, growth behind it, between it
And the
wetlands.
There's a lot in here, so, yeah.
I'm a little concerned, I mean,
I realize that to sit here and read all this is gonna be too time consuming for tonight's
I mean, do
meeting.
you have any just sort of synopsis of anything that's, above and beyond what, some new activity, new BMP, something you'd like to highlight to just kind of give us an example of what might be in here?
Yeah, everything is pretty standard, the BMPs as far as mowing, like the extent of where the mowing has been, it won't go any further. Trail maintenance, only the overhanging branches that are in the trail corridor will be trimmed and will be disposed of, away from the trail. There are a couple areas of pine trees that they would like to take down that are in the buffer zone, and those are highlighted on the maps. One of them is a hazard, or potential hazard, just to students. It's between the track and the baseball field. Then there's another area along Route 1 that's actually right under the wires. So they're just short, scrubby pines, and for some reason, but that's an example of something that they would like to do. The only kind of unusual thing that I was kind of chuckling with Doug about is the porta potties are often put on campus for like the Special Olympics weekend, or we had them for the whole baseball season right behind the field. And some commissions, I'm on the commission in West Newbury, some commissions don't like to have them in the wetlands in case they get tipped over. So we proposed having them at least 30 feet from a wetland line, and as long as they are on a vegetated surface, not on the pavement, and away from storm drains and anything like that. So that's kind of a different thing you might not usually run into, but that's one thing that we put in there.
It's pretty responsible.
Okay, have you, as agent, or administrator, have you read the whole thing?
I've read the whole thing. I've
Marked
met
it
with
up.
Wendy, I've read the whole thing. I haven't marked it up because there was, other than, what's your definition of ditch maintenance?
Ditch maintenance?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't think we put that in there.
Didn't you have some ditch maintenance?
Oh, the stormwater, yeah, there's a few retention basins on campus, and what I put in the plan is that they may be trimmed once a year. And that's just really to cut down on woody growth, because we have some multi-floor rows that are coming up in them, which, are just kind of nasty. So they may or may not want to do that, but I just put it in there because it's something that may happen in the next 5 years. My thought is that if the vegetation is trimmed, we would just leave it there instead of hauling it out unless it's an invasive, in which case.
That's fine, either way. On the roadside, it's nice if it gets removed once in a while, because that plant material is where all that stuff that gets pulled up with transpiration ends up. And when it dies and it stays in the ditch, then that stuff just goes back into the ditch. So it's nice to remove it, but the town doesn't either. I mean, most of the time you can't. That's a big campus, and it would be hard to do something like that. So I don't really have a problem with you laying it right where you cut it. Other than it may become a problem every once in a while that you get so much of it in the ditch, you start to lose the function of the ditch.
Yeah. Invasives was another big thing that would be detailed in here, and the plan is to have a separate stockpile up on the B&G area to put invasives that are cut down so that until they're dead, and they can be added to the regular brush pile.
They actually went so far as to talk about bagging those things that needed to be bagged with a dock bag, and so that the seed isn't viable by the time that it's disposed of. So they were pretty thorough. Pretty good job, actually.
I see you got signatures of all your employees.
That was for training.
Yeah, that was for the first training that we did, and then the idea is for each section of the BMPs to have a training sheet in front of it, so when somebody's newly hired or they're gonna start doing that kind of work, they read through the BMP and then just sign off, and then we just keep that with the plan as proof that they can train.
If the board would be more comfortable and get used to what's in that document, I don't think that there's anything here that's time sensitive, it's things that you're doing anyway for the most part.
There are a few things that we've been holding off on. One thing is the clearance on the side of roadways. I think we put 20 feet for a paved roadway in terms of just trimming the side. We have some dirt roads that we'd like to at least trim 3 feet, just because the growth is starting to encroach on them.
As well as the pines by the track, through resurfacing the track. Currently, we'd like to get rid of those pines, at least 2 or 3 of them before the track is completed this summer.
That wasn't in the RDA?
Was not.
Okay.
No, it was sort of, I don't believe so.
Okay.
It's included in here. And the other was maintaining, the precipitating event for this was to want to maintain the riprap border on the north side of the track, which has just poison ivy and
That's a mess.
so it's nasty stuff, and we just cleared that 2 or 3 years ago from a bunch of big pines were growing there. We'd like to maintain it and prevent it from growing up onto the track surface. And that's included in here as well.
And I think invasives also, before the knotweed goes to seed and everything, I'm just saying, if we could do, there were several things that we'd like to get started on before.
Frags are what, 1st of September, end of August?
Yeah,
When's knotweed?
I think,
Best time to go at that?
I think, right now, because there's nothing has started to blossom on it, so. I mean, probably up to mid-July would be okay.
But you want it to blossom, don't you? You want it to blossom but not go to seed
Yeah.
before you treat it, so probably a little bit later in the year for that also?
Yeah, well, and the other thing we put in here is, right now, we don't have a licensed chemical applicator on staff. So the plan right now, until we do, is to just physical, mechanical cutting and removal.
To hire
So,
somebody?
Yeah, until we hire somebody. Or somebody on staff gets a license.
I'm gonna leave it up to the, obviously I've spent much more time with this plan and I want you to be comfortable with it, so I'm gonna leave it up to the board as to whether they would like to continue this until they have time to review the full plan, or if they want to move this along tonight.
I mean, I think I can see it's a well thought out plan, and if somebody has read it and with a critical eye, I'm kind of ready to go with it, but, did have one question, does this cover the area that I would call the former Duff property, going over toward, is that under consideration in this plan?
Is that the oath?
Yeah, there's
Is there anything in here about that?
trail work possibly?
I'm not clear on the.
Going over to Caldwell Farm.
The other side, west, towards Triton, so west of your turf field area.
Oh, the Delaware, the retreat center,
Yeah,
that area?
exactly.
Yeah, all we really talked about was the trail that goes from the fields into that. I mean, we don't maintain the retreat center trails, so really the limit of work in terms of this plan is just the fields along that area.
So down to the wood line,
Yeah.
you know, where the ice skating rink is,
Yeah.
right down there, down to that wood line that's behind that Triton side of that skating rink. That's the limits of work on that cell, that area.
So I'm gonna show you a map on that. Would that be helpful?
Yeah. Tom's got it right here.
So you mean over here?
Yeah, I think if I'm with,
Yeah, this is Duff over here.
right, that's the river.
Right in here somewhere, I think, that
So it's-
roadway goes in.
And then, so this is under consider, this isn't included in the plan.
No,
Nope.
just some trails in there, but,
Be nice if those were maintained.
yeah.
I'm sure you got a few others.
Ben, did you see anything there that concerned you, jumped out at you?
No, it was really well thought out, and I'd go either way with the rest of the board. I'd be interested to look into it further, but if you are comfortable with it and you've spent the time with it, then I'm comfortable with it. It does seem like it's well thought out more. You guys haven't seen any tree of heaven on campus yet?
I don't think so. have
Familiar
you?
with that?
It's an Asian root colonizer, it's nasty, it's gonna get up here sooner or later.
Really?
You you see it on some highways, on like 195 and 95 south of here. It looks like Staghorn, or like Staghorn Sumac, very similar, but they get way taller, like full trees, and it's all really colonized.
Oh, boy.
It's impossible to get rid of.
Yeah, oh, boy.
Forget it, and it likes edges, so keep an eye out for it, because it likes edges and open spaces, so.
Where we disturb, it likes to move.
It likes to move in,
Yeah.
so that's why you usually see it first on the path, but it's just coming up the 95 corridor.
Thanks for the warning, anyway.
Yeah.
Jim, any thoughts?
I like the plan, you can pick up, I like the plan overall.
Would you,
It's, my only thing that I noticed in there is we seem to be quick to name and address invasive species. And you might wanna think about, don't narrow it to just those. I mean, there are others too, to take into consideration.
Like poison ivy.
One, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. It is very difficult. I read in a couple of them, remove all the roots. It's not gonna happen.
no, it's not gonna.
90% of your plants. But overall, I like it. I like it.
Are you comfortable closing the public hearing?
I
tonight?
am, because they can always come back and amend it too. I mean, they're gonna amend this. This is a draft,
That's
so
our
to
intent,
speak.
because we can't predict what's gonna happen in the next 5
No,
years.
no, you
If
can't.
we wanna do something different that's not in here.
And I've done
Work in
this, so I
progress.
understand that
Yeah.
process. And we were just getting in on the state before I retired with maintenance plans very similar to this. And that was one of the things we found is we, in the beginning, tried to be a little bit too specific. And you can't open the whole door, but you have to leave it ajar at least.
Building off what Jim said, one of the things I did look at is like your wet, in like one of the wetlands, like the species in there, like 9 out of 11 were invasives, and you have poison ivy and one other. So, and quaking aspen being like your native that nobody has a problem with, so it may, as you build on this, it may be worth thinking about from trying to do things that will get more wetland species, native wetland species established in your wetlands. So it's not just removing or controlling invasives, it's
That
getting
could be a
some.
great benefit.
That's what I'm saying, is
Yeah,
like, it shouldn't
yeah.
just be BMP
Eradicate.
to eradicate, BMP to promote what we would actually want to see on campus as well, would be an idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
So wetland
But I can see
sequences,
this.
those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So around the irrigation pond, for example, that would be.
If you're gonna remove the invasives around there, certainly,
Yeah,
and
there
then,
are a lot of invasives
and
as
then-
well as, some shrubby things that we'd like to cut down. So if we cut down to the ground and put a native mix, does that
Yeah.
sound?
Yep.
you probably have a pretty good fight out there just to the north of
Yeah.
your hockey rink also. That area out there has been like that for years.
Yeah.
That's a tough spot to try and control.
Anywhere it's not too wet to plant native tall grasses like big blue stem and stuff like that. That's one of like the fastest disappearing habitat types in New England, and there's a lot of species that are tanking with that. So anywhere you can get that stuff in is good.
Okay, good suggestion.
Yeah,
Good call.
big and little blue stem. It's a native grass. It gets probably like 4.5, 5 feet tall.
That'd be perfect for that area.
Good suggestion.
We get a lot of birds in it. You're gonna get invaded by the bird watchers. They're gonna come over from Plum Island. But
Is that type of a plant you're going to shade out along your
yeah, exactly.
overgrown
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
invasives?
Yep.
So it sounds to me like there was a consensus to close the public hearing, so that's what I will do. Wait, 1 second here. Would anyone like to speak on this project? Then at this point, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move we accepted this plan.
I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You're welcome, thank you, nice job.
It's gonna change. But you're gonna start, so now you can start and then in hypothetically a year, you could say, well, this isn't working, but we can do that, and you can adjust. It's easy.
Yep, you can have.
Once the basic is in place,
Okay, you're
more than
welcome.
half of that.
Yeah, tree of heaven. A land, tree of heaven, yeah. And the the leaves look a lot like a stag horse, and it just has serrations
There
going
are
up.
2 copies in
Remember,
there.
stag horse actually just has like 5 ridges down at the base.
If you wanted
and-
one out of there, I
Yeah,
think.
I guess, I mean, just get rid of it as fast as you can, if you see it,
That'd be
get it
wonderful.
and spray it and try to get the roots and everything, yeah.
That would give us
I don't
4,
care.
I don't
I've
think
seen
we,
enough of it.
and I'm gonna use this like a library anyway, so can I?
I've seen it, like, definitely north of Boston, I wanna say along 95, it's like,
I know.
yeah,
You're
but
lucky.
it's well established, more Connecticut, Rhode Island, but it's coming this
I'm
way.
impressed.
Thank you, no problem.
It's good. It's gonna change, it's a good. It's funny, the building doesn't balance very well. Yeah, we complained downstairs and really upset we did. That's really the pertinent one, I just got this for information. I can stay here if you want. We have a notice of intent to prune vegetation and remove dead and invasive vegetation and trash from John and Pamela Sawyer at 5 and 7 Independence Way.
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
So, we have, 5 and 7 Independence Way, and, you've seen all the pictures, but it's, there was somewhat of a disrepair in terms of trees and what we'd like to do is get more along the lines of what the DEP shows for, coastal dunes, replantings, clearing out a lot of the dead vegetation, any trees that need some pruning, we want to do some pruning on the trees, shrubs. So in terms of getting to like these kind of situations with new plantings, bringing back what's there that can be brought back. And the other aspect of the application is this trash that's been buried out in these areas over the years, broken bottles, rusty bed springs, all sorts of interesting stuff that I've been trying to dig up and clean up so that people walking out there don't get injured. So that's kind of the synopsis of the so these pictures are off the DEP's website. I mean, it just gives you an idea that they give you lists of various grasses and
Okay, so this isn't a particular plan for your
that
spot, this is just a
right off,
generic. Okay.
right off. So, but what my.
And that identifies those
It is-
species that are in the
exactly,
picture?
yes, it does.
Okay.
So, I've already purchased some plants, like, there's no, plum bushes out on either of the lots. I wanna put some of those out there. There's some bayberry, shrubs that have been, attacked by this vine that grows out there that goes up the trees and essentially, if it's left of its own devices, kills the trees, the shrubs. So, I've got some bayberry shrubs that I wanna put in, and some of the grasses that, we've noted on this, I'm trying to find places to get them. So, trying to, put in things that are normally there that I've seen on the island throughout my life, and other things that, like grasses that may or may not take well to this area, because the area is somewhat shaded by, existing trees, but I'd like to at least try to put some of the grasses in there that they recommend, and see if they'll take. So, that's summary. If there's any questions, I'm glad to.
So looking at these pictures, just,
Yep.
you know, are these trees, you know, I'm just so curious if you're gonna go
I'm
down
not
to
gonna-
the ground?
I'm not gonna take any trees down that are still viable. A lot of these trees, a lot of the branches are dead, and I wanna be able to prune those off. But if the tree is viable and it's got enough branches to survive, then I'm more than, I want them to stay. In certain situations where there aren't trees, where an oak tree or maple tree that has a good root system that will hold into the sand good, I wanna be able to plant some of those there. So there's a lot of trees that you see in these pictures. A lot of them are in very poor shape, but I want to at least try to prune them to see if they'll come back. Like I said, if they don't come back, then I want to put new trees in that area. So, yeah.
I mean, just sort of looking at the pictures, it sort of looks like shrubby type things are more appropriate than grass, unless it's not all like that.
Right, yeah, exactly. I just think, I like the concept that the DEP artistic drawing has of a variety of things. My experience, I've lived down on the island most of my life, and my experience with plantings is some stuff takes, some stuff doesn't. So I want to be able to try various things, and if something thrives in the area, then that's great. Put more down. If it, for whatever reason, it doesn't, then try something else. There's a number of plantings that they suggest, and I'm not going to try them all at once, but and by no means am I going to go through both blocks all at once. My goal is first and foremost to get rid of this vine that crawls up the trees and tries to kill it, and then try planting some of these shrubs and trees in certain areas, and like I said, see how it works. But by no means am I going to try to do everything like this particular year.
Just a little background for the board. I received a call that there was a little disturbance here, so I went down and they got a little ahead of themselves. This is somewhat an after-the-fact filing, so I wanted the board to know that. And I think that it would be appropriate to do a site visit because they permitted some parking down there, I don't know, a few years back. And these were the pictures that were provided when they permitted the parking. So you can see the background, certainly a different time of year, definitely a different time of year, but that doesn't look like that anymore. So I think it would be prudent to go down and have a site visit.
Who's they who permitted?
I'm sorry, what?
You said they permitted.
I'm sorry, these folks here permitted, I'll give you this also, you can look at that. They permitted this little parking area. They went before the Board of Selectmen and got permission to come down Independence Way and then put in a parking area sufficient for 2 cars, where it's denoted there.
So you two live in 3 and you own 5 and 7?
Are there any butters here? Would you like to speak?
Sure. Sue Bacuzzo, Independence Way West. My question is, you just bought 7, so how do you know there's trash and stuff buried in it that you're gonna be digging?
The only trash that I found is in 5 so far, and
that was yours
that's my primary concern right now, so it wouldn't surprise me if some showed up in 7 too, but the only trash that I found so far is in 5.
Okay. And then the other thing is, you're saying you're gonna do plantings, which sounds great, but Pam has already told me previously that you want to someday hope to put your vacation home, your retirement home there. So why would you plant trees?
Plans for a retirement home are many years in the future, so I'm not going to plant trees and then cut them down later. So if we put trees in, my intention is that they're going to stay where they are.
Okay, so I look right at 7, so what do you plan on doing at 7?
I haven't, like I said, my initial goal is to get rid of this vine that's killing the trees and the plants. Where I'm gonna put trees on 7, I couldn't tell you today, because I haven't had time to go around the whole area and say that tree is, and I need to go back. I haven't been out there this spring to see what's survived the winter, so.
And I did walk over to your side, and I stood in the street and right away, and truthfully, I only saw 1 tree. That's a decent sized tree that's dead, that needs to come down, but I didn't see anything else.
Yeah, well, 7 goes kind of way over the other side.
This was behind your house 5.
Yeah, but like I said, so the whole area, I need to go out there and look around and see what's dead, what's alive. I'm hoping that there are no dead trees, right? I don't want to have to cut trees down. I don't like to do that. The only time I would cut a tree down would be if it's too far gone.
Well, you must know one's dead because it's right behind your house.
There's probably more than one that's dead behind the house.
Okay. So, not being a pain, I just wanna know what's going on.
You have something you wanna show the board, Susan?
This is the only big one, so, it's a big one, I agree.
Sure looks it. Do you recognize that?
Yeah, I do recognize it.
Is that one on Owen?
Yeah, I don't know whether it's completely, it wasn't completely dead last year, but it may be completely dead now.
Okay.
And the lot does go way over to the people.
Down the other side of that,
And
the
there's a
dune.
big gully down in the other,
That's one of the first trees near your fence next to the.
Right, yeah, that's one that last year that, still had some green up at the top. Like I said, I haven't been out there to look at it this year, but it could be gone. And that one is somewhat of a concern because it is kind of near the power lines. So, they may need to come down for that reason.
The vines, which seem to be the main problem, did you determine what the species was?
No. When I was down, after I got called and I was down there, it looked like this, not like this, so I have not.
Yeah, so having lived on the island for a long time, I always call it woodbine. And looking at woodbine up, it's, I think it's called, the Latin is Virginia creeper. Which, you know, it says, if you look it up, it says it can grow to like 100 meters tall, because it just will crawl up anything. And my only problem with it is that when it does go up a tree, it does tend to fan out, and any branches, it just covers the leaves on the tree and kills it, so.
Is it Virginia creeper native, Earl?
Don't know.
Has it been introduced up here, is it a branch? I just say it says an invasive vines, so I don't know if that's what it is. Just pointing it out.
Thank you.
That's a scientist assuming.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. Are there any oaks or maples that grow on the island? I don't know that I've ever seen.
Yeah, so there is a 7, there's a pretty good sized maple down there.
Yeah.
And I've got a maple on 3, and an oak on 3, so.
And there's a big area that is out behind Dartmouth, Yale, that Exeter, I guess, that area there, that would amaze you if you ever went out there.
Yeah, I gotta go out
It
there.
doesn't even look like Plum Island, it's an
Cool.
amazing spot in the middle of Plum Island, and it's got a lot of large mature trees on it.
Cool.
You know, the beauty of, if we're able to save that, I mean, you walk out there on a summer day and it's like 10 degrees cooler, it's like a different place. So
Makes
hopefully
sense.
the trees can be saved.
Site visit. Next week? Week after? So next week is the week of the 26th, is the last week in June, and then we go to the first week in July, which probably go the 5th or at 5th or 6th on that day, on that week, I should say. 29th is not good for me. And there's also tomorrow and this Thursday too, if you wanted to do it that soon.
Not this week,
Okay,
next week.
week of the 26th,
I'm good that week, whenever.
Monday morning.
Monday the 26th. Would you like to be there, and can you be there
I
Monday
would
morning?
like to be there. I'm gonna be in Washington on Monday,
When do you return?
Monday afternoon.
Monday afternoon. Could we do it Tuesday? Tuesday morning?
Well, no, I could do it at like 11 Tuesday.
11 Tuesday, does that work for anyone else?
Yeah.
No problem, doesn't work for you.
Yeah, but I'm gonna be the hardest person.
Well, what's your availabiliity then? Do you have a date you want to throw out there?
26th of Monday was good, but it doesn't, probably doesn't wanna be there. The afternoon of the 5th? Does that work?
The afternoon of the 5th?
Does that work for people?
Would that work for you?
The what?
The afternoon of July 5th, Wednesday?
Yeah, I could do that.
We have to be after 2.
After 2?
That's fine. Yeah, it is better for me.
Does that work for you, Joe? Yeah. So we'll do the 5th
At 2:30?
at 2:30? Okay. All right, any more, anything else for the applicants at this time? else like to speak? Then it's my recommendation that we continue this hearing to the July 18th date.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. John, we'll see you on the 5th at 2:30.
All right.
Sure, I'd love a copy of those pictures if you want to leave them behind. Thank you, Joe. So we'll put this together some other time. Notice the take copy, please. Thank you. Let's take it together. We have a notice of intent to construct a single-family home from Plum Island Blue LLC at 17C Fordham Way. Hello.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Michael Seacamp Environmental Consulting. And I'm here tonight representing Plum Island Blue LLC for the construction of a single-family residence on a location that was where a building previously stood. And I believe, it's my understanding that they went to the zoning board of appeals. I'm not sure what the issue was, but I know that they got an approval. And if you look at the, some of the, like, Mass Oliver and some of the other, maps that I provided, it does show that there was a building there previously. Would you like the tear sheet?
Please, yes, please.
And the receipts? So the site is not in the flood zone. And
1 second, just for orientation. Blue Hotel over here, just about in here, and we're talking about this back structure right here. These two exist, and they're gonna stay as they are.
I have another aerial photograph that might
Yeah.
help you a little bit. So Blue Hotel, this is across the street, the beach is over here. And this lot is lot 17, and there were three dwellings, and they're going to replace this one that is now missing. The provided some of the architectural drawings. The mechanical room is going to be suspended 2 feet above grade, so the lowest elevation will be 15, or a little over 15, because the grade at the building is just slightly over 13. Flood elevation is 13, so as I said, on the plan it states that they're not in the flood zone. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I only see one set of stairs coming down out of the structure. No matter how I looked at it, I couldn't see on any of the views a second set of stairway, second stairway.
I do have, you're right.
No, that deck is about 8 feet high.
Yeah, I only see one as
So,
well.
no, you're not gonna step off that. There's a profile, maybe next page here. It shows, well, maybe it's this one up this way. I'll show you how high it is. See, that's 7.2 to underneath the steel, and then you're up here, so that's a good leap.
I'm not
And
aware.
I don't remember what the drawing was that was submitted to zoning, but this one would have to match zoning, because you're existing non-conforming, you're not gonna get any more lot coverage.
Right.
So it would either have to be this, the other stairway would either be under the structure or cut out of one of the decks that exists, so maybe this front deck. You'd have to give up some deck for stairway.
I'm not aware of that regulation.
Okay, well, I mean, in Massachusetts, it's two means of egress out of every structure, where this is rented out as a room. Now, maybe you go to Sam and Sam says, no, in this case here, I'm not requiring two means of egress, this is fine. It would have been the first time I'd heard it though, so it seems as though there'd be two required.
Seems like it would have come up in the zoning.
Maybe, maybe not, you know, it's not, yeah,
So, if that needs to be added, when they go for the building permit, can we get an approval contingent on that?
I think so, but that's my small problem with this, and my problem's not putting this house back, it's how are you gonna do it?
Well,
Yeah, look where it sits.
you mean, how do you get the pile driver in there?
How do you get everything in there? Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, that I don't know.
You don't know. I don't know either. You know, I mean, we've got a couple of narrow walkways on their property. I don't think they own the property to the rear. So I have no idea how they're
Well,
gonna
they would
gain
have
it.
to come from their other property over here.
They would, but think of the disturbance to that. So we have to, you know, quantify that somehow. And that would have to be discussed in a narrative. There was no construction sequence or anything in the narrative, so it kind of left me to guess.
Is this lot here in the same line?
No, that's Mr. Day, that's a standalone lot. And then their parking lot is on the other side here, so they don't abut their, you know, a piece of property that's also owned by them that I know, other than this up here, but it's also heavily impacted. It's full of, there's another structure on that lot, there's the same kind of treatments that, it's a little more wide open, there aren't 3 homes on it, but the same kind of treatments that you see here are all through that lot.
Do it by hand.
Yeah, it's a considerable distance off the street. How did they remove it?
That I don't know.
Because they got an emergency cert to remove it, so that didn't really come for full review. The building inspector ordered it down, so, yeah, there was an emergency cert to that.
I see.
Why did he order it down?
Because it had blown off or come off the foundation to a certain extent, so it was dangerous.
Because of the location or just
Almost
maintenance?
80 feet.
I don't know if it was deferred maintenance or if it was the storm that hit back there and particularly hit it hard, or I don't know.
And what are your
Well,
concerns
it's a different
about,
scale.
I mean,
It's a
obviously,
scale.
it's going to be their problem to get in here and disturb areas that they already have developed. But I mean, what are your concerns about, how they go about that?
Well, how are they gonna put it back? You know, you can say, yeah, they've got all landscaped areas, they're gonna go back just like they are.
Yeah.
Put it down on writing and then speak to, I mean, you know, they would have to get permission for that certainly, and you'd think they'd have some input to that. And again, you'd think they'd have some input to that. You know, at some point, they would have to put that on a plan and then, you know, it's really not gonna matter to DEP whether that is ornamental grasses or beach grass when it comes to impact.
Right. You mean the impact, they'll consider it to be an impact?
To vegetation, exactly. If it's a turf lawn, you're impacting the turf lawn on one end, but on the other end, you can't replace it with turf lawn, you have to go back with a regular vegetation, so that's how they've kind of determined how they're gonna view vegetation down on the beach. If you have a turf lawn, you can't get away with saying, well, I'm not impacting dune vegetation. They've pretty much got it covered that way.
So you're saying if you damage the turf lawn, then you have to replace it with beach grass?
Which is difficult on those sites, because now you've got organics in your top layer.
Right.
And you really don't want that down there for that type of plant, so.
Suppose they decided to just remove all this, go up through there and we're back.
They could do that, yeah.
And that's mostly not vegetated.
But you know, if you're gonna do that too, can I pull it, let me pull this down for 1 second, let's take a look at it. Yeah, you've got some topo on it, not much, and you've got some grades here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's helpful, but you'd have to topo it before you did that, because the minute you walk a machine through there, you're just gonna flatten whatever's there. You know, there'd be no features left to it. You'd have to restore those and put them back.
Well, there's no reason to think that you'd be changing the topo by having access to the site. I mean,
If there's a small dune there that may be 2 feet high, what do you think happens to it when that excavator turns its tracks?
there's no dunes here. Have you been out there?
I've seen the law, I understand that, but look, it doesn't matter whether it's a big tall dune or not, you
Yeah.
know, the whole thing is coastal dune because it's on a barrier beach.
Right.
And so no matter what, you have to, it's up to you to show that you're not gonna impact this in a negative way.
You're gonna put the
And
blue glass back that they.
I know, but now you've given me 2 options.
Yeah.
You're gonna come in this way and you're gonna come in
Yeah.
this way. So, and that's what I mean, it needs to be definitive, that's all.
Okay.
You know, again,
I
I don't,
understand.
I don't really have a
Yeah.
problem with the structure itself going
Right.
up. Other than I think you need to take a look at that second means of egress. You've got the height, you've got everything you need there, there was an existing structure there.
Right.
The structure's not my issue, it's just how, the logistics of
How to get
fixing
in
it, yeah.
Okay.
So is this entire lot not in the V zone?
Right to here,
That's,
just about there, that's V zone, believe it or not, that is X zone, so there's a wall of water there, there's no AO.
yeah, I just wanted to,
Yeah.
you know, there is,
I did look that up after we spoke about that, I did look into that, because I remembered you mentioned it.
Any other issues?
Any other issues with the reconstruction? You might as well address them all.
I can't think of any, other than, yeah, access.
construction impacts and temporary, how they mitigate.
Okay. We'll work on that.
Okay, super. Would anyone like to speak?
Just about your question about how they access that, to tear the house down, they owned the property on Southern Boulevard at the time, and that's how they were able to, get in there to get all the structure out of there. They since sold that off separately, so they don't own that anymore.
So that was that dark colored house that sat behind them? Okay.
Pretty much open, I was looking at the satellite, pretty much open
On
in the corner.
on that side, yeah.
Yeah, they took the fence down, went in, ripped it out, and then put it back up, I think.
Well, maybe we can do that.
Well, I was just gonna say, maybe that's an option for
Yeah.
you, if, you know, they're still on good terms,
Look into that.
you know, it might be simpler and less expensive. If you choose to do that, or if you choose to come in on this side, you're gonna have to modify your notice of intent, because you're adding a property to it, so.
Mhm.
I mean, it's open, it's not a big deal. It may change your butters list a little bit if you're doing 100 feet around this, or that instead of just this.
Right.
It may require some additional notification.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anything else? Any other comments? Then it would be my recommendation to the board that we continue this to the July 18th meeting.
So,
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. We have a notice of intent to construct a private dock and walkway from Carl Rydell and Martha Kaiser at 58 Riverfront East. Good evening, Martha. There you go. Tear sheet. I was gonna say, he sent you out here alone, huh? Oh, okay.
His baby.
So what are you doing?
Well, finally, after 65 years, we're gonna put just put a dock in like the Taylors.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully.
It was fairly straightforward. He did a pretty good job laying it out. A couple of questions. The posts on the way down, could I see that for 1 minute? Yes, thank you. These posts here,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be what? What is this just an H, typical of what we always used to put down there?
Right, those
and-
big round ones that have that boil do it.
Yeah, so you're gonna put pilings in here,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're gonna just put an H across there to support this.
Correct.
All right, now when you say Ed Boyle's gonna do it,
Yes.
how is he going to do that? Is he gonna drive those?
That's what he did, he's a pile driver.
I understand.
So, yeah, I assume.
Okay,
I haven't, I guess I'm a force
And-
substitute. Sorry.
where is he gonna drive them from?
Oh, like his equipment in?
Hmm,
From the yard, I guess. Maybe by through the Brown, so they get John Brown through there?
yeah, well, he's gonna have to stay off of here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much room he has up here,
In the front yard?
and those, and
Mhm.
he uses an excavator, so they generally don't have much of a reach. You have to be pretty much on top of your
Okay.
pile.
Does he have to get another piece of equipment or?
I don't know,
I
and
don't
that's
know.
why I asked you if
I
it,
I apologize, I
I-
don't know, that's a question for Carl.
I mean, it could be hand.
they could be, yeah, a lot of
could
people-
be,
they
I
could
know.
be hand done.
I know the second one that the Browns put in, they did that.
Yeah, there's no way
Yeah.
you reach out there from.
Yeah.
No, you're not
Yeah.
gonna reach out there.
Yeah, he's probably, yeah, I've never known that, he's got a young guy that works with him now that does all the dock
Michael.
work. Michael, yeah.
Yeah. So in that case, then you would advance that from the upland, you'd advance that
Mhm.
walkway from the upland and use
Right.
that walkway as your workspace and.
Right.
Now, this part of it right here,
Mm-hmm.
most of the applications I remember, this and this were fastened together. But I know that Carl out here wants to use the sleeve and the post like the marina does.
Yeah.
Great idea,
Yes.
keeps the big block out of there, no
Mhm.
chains, no nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
So great idea, but that fixes that point. Right, so this, and this point doesn't support that end. And this end is not gonna be happy just sitting down on these legs, these table legs. How is this end held of this structure?
That's a question.
Okay.
I don't know.
Custom
I'm-
fab brackets.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're probably talking the same thing as you're talking out there, but he didn't, you know, I don't even know if he took it into consideration, I can't get it from the drawing.
Kind of like, how do you keep this from
It's
you wandering around?
pretty
Yeah.
good for, I
Yeah,
was
the same
shocked at his
down.
drawing actually, but I
I
don't know.
remember
That-
Mr. Trevino
I haven't
drawing
looked
isn't
at it.
exactly detailed.
Yeah.
See,
I know he's,
lots of times, Ben, what they have here is a positive connection here,
Yeah.
positive connection here on this end, and then the float has some supports.
Yeah.
So this end up here
Yeah,
can't
this
wrap
is not a
around.
float.
Yeah, there's nothing, so when these legs come up, when the tide comes in,
Yeah.
and these legs come off the deck, there's nothing to keep that from just getting ripped off and go down the river.
Not that it's necessarily, so for this, they would need a permit from us, ACOE, and CZM. Correct?
No.
They don't need a CZM. They don't need an ACOE. I don't think
It's, you know, what do we call the dock permitting? The
Yeah,
floating-
these floating pods, they're not going for a state permit on this, so these floating pods have always been permitted with a 10A. So they go to the harbor master for a yearly 10A. If you don't wanna do that, if you don't wanna be subject to that yearly permit, you can go to the state permit and get, I mean, much more comprehensive, it's more expensive. Most people will come down and do the 10A. But we have yet to have anybody, have to permit that through that. We just went, as a matter of fact, someone works in, I don't think in your office, but in your discipline, certainly right across the river.
No, that's what I'm thinking
And
of,
they
because
just went
they,
through,
well, they had to go through a nightmare because the CZM denied their permit.
they did deny it.
Yes.
Okay, all right,
They
I was
go-
unaware of that.
Yeah, so that's why I'm trying to ascertain.
You wanna figure that out?
They don't, yeah, get into the same situation that also we're not, if we permit this, that the assume that they have the authority that they need.
Carl, I did say to
To do
Carl
it.
that there are other permits he would potentially need other than our permit.
Yeah, I
I
just
don't
don't
know
wanna
if he
see
relayed
this-
that to you or not, but he
Yeah,
did.
I just
Okay.
don't want also to think that if we issue this permit, that it's
That's
carte
all.
blanche to do it.
Natural Heritage, did you send a copy to Natural
I have no
Heritage?
idea what you said. All I have is the abutters list. I'm gonna sign.
Yeah, he checked no on that. So. Right there. We're gonna give a copy to these folks, the Division of Marine Fisheries, for one. Ben, anything else?
North
Yeah.
Shore, to Gloucester?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to you.
Yeah, please, no, we're gonna leave that here.
Okay, yeah, okay. I have a copy of this.
Let me see if there's anything else, I'll give it to, all to you.
I've got it right here. Yeah, I've got it right there.
I don't have anything else.
So, does it state how much clearance we're gonna have underneath the, on those plans?
Yes, 2 feet. With an 8x8 pad. He did comment that the substrate is granular down there now that the mud has gone away. It's kind of interesting. 3/4 inch spacing on his deck, so he's got that.
Recommendation was something more than 2 feet. Can't remember.
No, I think the people across the river, actually, I was surprised,
No.
because I told them 2 feet, I think they went down to 18 inches, but I think they
Not,
got
no, that's a float size, I think.
float size.
No, I think the 2 feet, I'm trying to think about what we recommend for,
I think you recommend 2 feet, but I don't know why, they got approved at 18 inches
Yeah.
across the river.
well, they won't go in, it goes over rock.
Well, not the float part, yes, a lot of their
Yeah.
walkway did, but not the float part of it, the float part was sitting down in the mud.
Don't worry about it. It's not about that, it's about something else. Okay. I'm just thinking, so it has to go to DMF for recommendation for review now? Before we act on it, or do we act on it first?
No, I think
think
the Division of Marine Fisheries should be before we act on it. Any other permits that they need would be after we act on it, because they'd send them back to the local level to begin with anyway.
And so we've also talked about how this is gonna be constructed and what access.
Yeah.
Want some more info from our contractor.
A little bit more
Yeah,
info on how
yeah.
that's, how that's gonna be put in,
Okay.
how you're gonna hold that landward edge of that, the floating section. And the Division of Marine Fisheries, that's it. Anything else? Any butters here? Would anyone like to speak? Then it'd be my recommendation that we continue this to the July 18th meeting date.
Oh,
I think these are all my copies.
Yeah, okay, great.
All those in favor?
Uh,
Aye. Whoops, yeah. That's on top of that. There you go. We have a request for determination of applicability to remove accumulated windblown sand from, against the existing structures from Stephen DeSalvo and Frank Tobin at 14 and 16 Northern Boulevard.
Hi,
Good evening.
did you need a tear sheet? Because I didn't know that, but I do have a picture of it. Is that,
Let me see the picture and then you can get We usually mail it out to you.
Huh? They never mailed me anything. They were supposed to mail it to me?
Typically, yeah.
Yeah. You paid enough money for it, they're supposed to
Sure
mail
did.
you the tear sheets, so.
You have to request it.
Huh? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway. Okay, well. Hello.
Hey Steve, how you doing?
Great.
Simple project, just explain to the board what happened to you down there.
Sure, so, a lot of wind-blown sand, next to my property that borders, the right-of-way at Fifth Street off Northern Boulevard. So, as you can see from the picture, you know, typically there's, pretty clear walkway the first 20, 25 feet or so off of Northern Boulevard. I don't know what it is, if you don't have it. So wind-blown sand accumulated throughout the winter. So that's a pretty old picture. It was the nearest one I could find of the same line of sight up there. And so this was, you know, piled up against my house, covering. There's a access point here that goes under the deck that was blocked, and you know, started to cause rot and stuff. So my property is only about a foot between the house and the right-of-way. So almost all of it was on the right-of-way, which is town land, so, I mean,
I don't think there was much left, was there?
the town has kindly removed the sand from the right-of-way, so basically the problem is solved, but this was sort of a technicality, right, that both, and I filed it because both my property, which is the house, but also my neighbor Frank Tobin, who I'm representing here, is sort of just south of me. You can't really see it there, but anyway, it was falling, he's below, so the sand was also falling into his deck and his walkway, and it was a nuisance. So we discussed that the town remove the sand out of the right-of-way, it would basically solve the problem, but you recommended that because inevitably it would affect the
You need to shovel, whatever you were gonna shovel off and
extra
repair
foot
your
on either
paths
side,
and-
that,
yeah.
I said, fine, so I'll, you know, so I'm coming
So
through
here we
this process, so I think I'm happy if you're happy.
Yeah, there was blacktop about 2/3 of the way up that building, went down there with the highway department, took a shovel, found the blacktop, dropped the bucket, and scooped the sand all the way to the edge of the blacktop, and then took a line from this dune right here and just flayed it out, so this blended back into this dune system up here. Yeah, it was about all we could do with it. You can't let it build up against the sides of people's houses or rot houses. And we went down under the beach management plan, but the beach management plan only covers the public property and not the private property, so that's why I had them file.
So I think it's, you know, so I appreciate it for the property, and then also the vast majority of foot traffic, that's a major right-of-way for beach access for people from Second and Fourth Street that come through, and to some extent, a lesser extent, people from the Center Island parking area if they choose to walk down Northern rather than around Center Island. So I think it's a lot safer as well, frankly, and easier now that it's, you know, it's sort of restored closer to where it was, and I think it, you know,
It's more natural than,
it works well overall, so thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions for the applicant? Any butters here? Would anyone like to speak?
How do you get a right of way where you can shovel sand off of it because you got too much?
Well put.
Didn't used to have that problem there
No,
either, but
I know.
anyway, yeah, it was a funny winter. How do I resolve, do I need to do anything to make us
You
happy?
can get something from the paper.
So that picture off their
Or you
website?
could email, or you could
Yeah,
email
I
it.
tried to email it, but I didn't have Wi-Fi, so I'm emailing it to conservation, you'll probably pick it up, right? So, okay, as soon as I get a Wi-Fi signal, I'll do that, and if you need more, let me know. Thank you very much.
The town has a clean and a dirty pile of sand, so where this had some small stone in it, it was taken over to Ogilway and put in the emergency stockpile that is somewhat unclean, let's put it that way. In an emergency, it's really good sand. For dressing up right-of-ways, it's not so good. And so I would close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I guess we kinda have to accept that anyway. I'll move to that effect.
All those in favor? Aye. Well, it's, to be honest, no one worked outside the permit.
Right,
This
right.
resolved itself pretty much for him, because he was so close, and the town went down under
But he's
permitted
covered.
management
But
plan,
he's
so.
covered.
But he's covered now. Up here, he's got a little bit of a walkway that goes, a pathway that goes in front of his deck. If he chooses to dig that out and give himself a little bit of, a little ease there, he can still do that. We have a request for determination of applicability to construct an above-ground pool and associated decking from Jeff and Hillary Lind at 12 Corsa Brook. Hello, Hillary.
Hello.
How are you? They applied for a building permit. I went out there and did a site walk and found that the river was within about 120 feet of the proposed location. So you can just tell them what you propose to do.
Yeah, you have that picture, we just wanna put an above ground pool, 26 by 15, and, extend the deck, to the pool. The deck is strange rod. It's built original with the house. The house was built in 93.
And as you can see, Corsa Brook's in the backyard. So,
Yeah, that's Corsa Brook.
yeah, right on this corner over here is its closest corner. I took a wheel and measured it to be about 120 feet. So they're in the second riparian zone. This sits up pretty much on a shelf. There's this kind of a steep, reinforced with some stone. There's kind of a plateau here, and then it drops off and goes down into the backyard.
But it looks like good vegetative border for the brook.
Yeah, there's a lot of turf lawn there. It seemed like a pretty benign project.
And this is all big stone, the border.
Yeah, it's pretty well contained. Any questions for the applicant? Are there any abutters here? Would anyone like to speak? How you doing, Ben? Did you pull up a picture?
Yeah.
You good with it?
Yeah, we're good.
Then I will, if there are no other questions for the board, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Move to approve with a negative determination.
A second.
All those in favor? Aye. Sure.
Yeah, sorry. The tip sheet is. Great, thank you.
Take care. We have a request for determination of applicability to construct a 12-foot by 16-foot deck on the rear of a home of Lonnie Souther at 15 South Pond Street.
Good evening.
Hi, Nick.
I'm Nick Lanham, representing Lonnie Souther. Pretty straightforward. Deck is within, I believe, your buffer zone.
This project borders the wetland that's out behind the fire station, the Morgan Ave Fire Station.
Taking some photos of the back of the house and also the backyard, which shows lawn and planting beds. Deck is supposed to be just below this green line, which will be, put it between 2 and 3 feet above grade. It's within setback requirements.
You hand digging post, Nick, or are you gonna have a machine back
I
there?
would like to do a small machine with precast footings.
Okay, just gonna do a small machine. Do you have a hay bale line? Why don't you
We
throw,
did not try.
yeah, why don't you throw a silt line in there and just initial it? Does the board have any questions for the applicant? Would anyone like to speak? That's it? Then if there are no other questions or concerns, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move we accept it as presented.
Have a second? All those in favor? Aye.
Do you want to maintain the set pictures?
Love to keep those pictures if you, is it, these the only ones you have? Do you want some of them back? Okay.
There's 2 sets.
Okay. Do you want one of these sets?
Can print more from here.
Gotcha. I'll send Nick, yeah, you're aware of the 10-day appeals period. I think you've heard that before, so, all right, thank you.
Several times,
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We have a notice of intent to construct a single-family home with an attached garage and retaining wall from Stephen Capilupo at 40 O'Reilly Road, and they have been issued a DEP number 50-1244. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm doing well, yourself?
Good evening.
For the record, my name is Matt Steinel, from Millennium Engineering. I do have a copy of the DEP file number, cut sheet, if you'd like that for the record, so leave that. So the applicant, Mr. Capilupo here, would like to construct a new single-family dwelling on his property at 40 O'Reilly Road. The property currently has a single-family home and a couple detached garage structures, and is predominantly a manicured lawn. There's not a lot of vegetative cover other than lawn throughout the bulk of the property, except along the edges where the tree line is. And then on the backside there you have the marsh. We went ahead and we had the wetlands flagged by West Environmental. You'll see them here shown as TW flag series 1, wrapped around here to 39. The structure is up on a high point here, where there's like a little knoll, there's a couple small outcrops of ledge. And the intention here is to build up the dwelling to allow for a walkout on one end, to extend the driveway with a circular turnaround here, and then an entrance into the attached garage, and then to install 2 new septic tanks on the back side here that would then pump up to the existing leach field. The septic tanks conform to the Title V setback for 50 feet. We've adhered to the unwritten rule that you guys asked for the 25-foot staying away from the wetlands, so we've maintained that there as kind of our limit of not getting too close to the wetlands in that respect. We proposed the installation of erosion control. We have the silt sock detail here, going completely around all the construction activities proposed, and the drainage or the runoff from the new paved surface area here is all intended to actually be picked up by a low point here in front of the garage, and then deposited into a small detention basin here to allow it to seep into the ground and be treated prior to its being allowed to discharge anywhere near the wetland. It would just seep into the ground, and you wouldn't have any nutrients or anything being introduced to the wetlands as a result of that. There's a retaining wall along the front that would allow for a little fill installation in the front of the building with a walkway to grant entry and access to the front porch. And on the back of the property there, on the back of the house there is a proposed deck and a screened porch off to the side. I think I've covered most of it. There's an existing well here. The intention here is for the existing structure to be converted into either an office or an in-law apartment. We've looked at the zoning requirements to make sure that that building did not exceed the size requirements that's allowed to have that as an attached second residence there. That's the direction Mr. Kaplan decides to go with that. But there, he has a backup use of it if he's unable to go that way. He's looking at a possible office there if he had to. Existing well on site would be tied in, sewer, and then he would be tying in the underground utilities off of the original structure here into the new structure for the electrical. Any questions?
Talk about the ACEC one more time.
ACEC, the ACEC, there was a map that we provided that shows that we are basically surrounded by the Parker River Basin. It actually has this upland portion sketched out around it, that it goes around it actually. So the work on the property is actually outside of the ACEC, but we are completely surrounded by it. So when we discussed the issues of whether or not he would be triggering any type of stormwater management practices here, it was one of those chicken before the egg things. If the water were to discharge to the ACEC, we would be subject to it. If we put the basin in here and caught the water before it was discharged to the ACEC, we're not subject to it. So you either have to address it, in which case you're not subject, or you don't address it, in which case you are subject and have to address it. So that was the reason for this here. I mean, the size of the basin is oversized for the additional pavement that's being created here, and we are catching all of that water here. And as a result, the intention of the project here is that there should be no new discharges to the ACEC resource area.
What's the elevation of the ACEC?
The ACEC elevation, I'd have to honestly look at the regulations because I don't know that it's, what the definition of it by elevation is. I just know that the mapped location of it is shown.
I think it's 3 meter.
Is it 3 meter?
So it's about your 10-foot contour, so you're into it a little bit.
Up on this back edge here?
Yeah.
If that's the case, yeah, they don't really define it well in the regulation. They just show it as by a map. And
Well, the guidance documents tells you don't just use the map, use both of those, well, the given information.
Right.
So I think you're gonna find again that it's that 10-foot contour, pretty close to the 10-foot contour, 3 meters.
which, yeah, would then strike basically this corner of the house here, and the deck and stuff would be elevated above it, but we'd be over it.
The structure is two of the four sides are dead on the 25-foot wetland buffer, and almost the entire structure is within the 100-foot buffer. So my only question is, if you have all this land up here, why is this, did you guys design the house to be so tight to the ACEC and the buffer rather than moving it a little bit off the water and giving yourselves room to, because I mean, if you're gonna have a huge deck here, screen porch here, some of the stuff we talked about earlier, not just you're right on the buffer anyways for always at the house, but how you get equipment, you can build the deck first, like all that kind of stuff. So I guess that'd be my question is, what were the considerations in siting the house on this piece of property?
Sure. Part of the reason we ended up at this location here has to do with the site features. The whole entire property is previously disturbed manicured lawn, so it's not like it's undisturbed area. So we're not proposing to create any new disturbances here that aren't already in existence. The location of it had to do with the fact that there are existing structures on the property that are not proposed to be taken down, which kind of limited us here. We have a septic up front. You have a tree line here with steep slopes going down this way, which takes out this whole edge of the property coming this way. The existing structure's here, so really the only place for it would be, either remove some of the existing structures and pull forward, which Mr. Capiloupo wants to maintain. He uses these structures currently, he does not want to lose the use of them. Or, to lose the house, which his intention here is to have that, like I said, as an in-law apartment for his family, or, worst case, continue using it as his office. Originally, I can tell you that the intent, the goal was to pull this further. The view was a consideration, and we talked on site. We laid this house out several times on site with him, so he could see the view, see the angle, make sure it's pointing the way he wanted, and we pulled it back as far as we felt was necessary to meet what your intention is, what your goal is to maintain a minimum 25 foot. So we pulled it back to maintain that separation. Construction of it again, it's a deck on the main structure, so they're gonna be, mainly swinging hammers and carrying the lumber back there in order to construct it. It's not gonna require any massive equipment to build the deck.
Did I note there was a plunge pool?
There's a screened porch, and then a deck here with a plunge pool within the footprint of it.
And how's, what's a plunge pool?
Yeah, what is a plunge pool?
What's your definition of a plunge pool?
It's basically a big hot tub that may or may not even happen, but we just wanted to have the option if we got excited and found something that worked for us, that would be within the footprint of the deck.
So just some water you can get into.
Yeah, I looked up a plunge pool online when it was first suggested, because I didn't really understand what a plunge pool was myself, and a lot of the pools that they show on there are just small pools that you can actually turn a pump on and create a flow, and you can swim against it. It's like a small.
I got you, one of those
Yeah.
continuous pools,
Yeah.
or, yeah. How's the water cared for?
For the pool?
Yes. What type of systems do they use? Chlorine? Do they use the salt? What kind of?
Not a salt water, it would be a traditional pool chemistry. Yeah.
But traditional pool chemistry, and I don't mean saltwater pool. Traditional pool chemistry, lots of times now they will take care of that water with salt, believe it or not, even though it doesn't make the water salty. So there's a salt environment to it.
Well,
so it's not chlorine. I
have to back up and say, I just don't know that.
Okay, that's a good answer. That's fair enough.
Yeah, I know they have chlorine, but they have Baquicil and other.
They've got all kinds, and that's why I asked the question. Is it a filter that needs backwashing? How do you care for it?
Right.
Out there. And again, now, so now you're gonna be discharging whatever is there to that ACEC. That definitely wouldn't be allowed.
Right, so any approval of a potential pool, they would have to involve any languages that would indicate that he couldn't discharge. He would have to maintain it in a way that would prevent any discharge to the ACEC.
And the deck and the screen porch, they're not cantilevered, they're definitely some ground support.
Correct.
In the pool, if you put a pool there, it's gonna be heavy, you're gonna have to support it.
Right, it would sit on the ground, and it would just come up and penetrate the deck, and
So it'd be a footing all the way down to the ground. You're not piling, so this is just standard stuff unless you hit rock, and then you're gonna pin to the rock where you hit it, or you're gonna take it out of there.
When we start digging, the decision of how much I want to chase ledge will be made. If it's a little
At the
bit, I
time.
might chase it a little, but if it's basically, just
it'll
too
depend on
much,
the material too. If it's a shaly ledge that breaks up, it'll affect the decision as well, if it's a hard bedrock ledge.
So how does the board want to move forward with getting definitive answers to some of the questions that we've asked tonight?
Well, one thing with this to be to actually determine exactly where the ACEC boundary is, and then what we wanna do with that. Or, what the regulatory requirements are for ACEC. We've heard one recently,
I know what you mean, yeah, the Britton property down there. And the other place we encounter it all the time is on Plum Bush and Plum Bush Downs. That whole area along there, that whole thing is ACEC. So we encounter it there also. Although I think down there they have gone around where the homes are.
I wasn't here for the Britain.
You see, where are you talking about, the one across the street or another
Yeah.
site?
Yeah, one on the little island there across the street, 1A.
Oh, no, I'm literally thinking.
Yeah,
across
yeah,
the
Oh,
street.
no, not over there,
I,
yeah.
I know that's not a Britain property, but it.
But he's
Britain's
gonna build,
it,
he is
that's
gonna,
why I
yeah,
was
I
thinking.
talked to Chris, he is gonna build that structure.
Yeah, as far as answering some of the questions the board had, I hope I was able to answer most of them. The ACEC question, we can definitely look into that. I'm not sure how it affects the proposed project, because I don't believe there's anything in the requirements that would prevent us from building within the ACEC. It just affects how we handle drainage and things like that there. So I don't know that it would change the proposal, unless the commission required some type of a change.
I think we'd leave that up to you to address it and handle that burden. I don't believe there's any special regulations relative to ACEC. We've always held it to the standard of, when you're talking about a buffer zone, no impact. If you're, no significant impact. When you're talking about the ACEC, no impact to ACEC is kind of the standard that we've always applied. A little more difficult down on Plum Bush, but most of that down there is replacement of existing structures, not a new one within the ACEC.
But what needs to be done to make that ACEC determination?
The elevation would have to be determined, and then the contours are already there, so once the elevation's determined, it's pretty easy to see where it shows up on the plan.
Yeah, once you get a number, you can put it in anywhere you want.
And what's the, is there a flood value here?
Flood elevation is 13. This is right in that area where they took the maps a few years ago and went from 9 to 13, jumped it up 4 feet. It changed overnight. So yes, we do have elevation 13. We are working within the floodplain elevation here, but we are on the side of we're on the side of the flood maps here where it's dictated by the big marsh system that's out here. So the state has not asked us to do any type of flood storage compensation as a result of the work in that area. But we are working within that zone.
Yeah, that is directly open to the influence of the tides, unlike that one that we heard about. Actually, two of them, the one down by the Raleigh line and this one here, are somewhat constrained by 1A and this roadway here.
Nice northern exposure too.
What's that?
Nice northern exposure.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Push water.
Anything else? Any other concerns?
Not that I can think of.
Well, we mentioned the pool, but I don't know, is that significant?
I don't
know the water treatment. I don't see that as an issue because with today's chemicals, you can work around that. You can use environmental chemicals to clean it up.
We're pumping wastewater uphill, is that right?
From the septic system?
Yeah, you're pumping from the house uphill to the septic system.
Yeah, it's a forced main.
But that wouldn't impact us the pool maintenance because that's not.
I was just thinking about failure pumps and
Oh yeah.
things like that. And then we're stuck.
What is that, alarm at 3/5?
Effectively, what the code requirement for septic systems is that above the alarm elevation, you have to have a minimum of 1-day storage based on your calculated flow. Well, all of us know in the industry that the actual flow is much lower than the calculated flow, so in reality, probably 2 or 3 days of storage in there to give you time to get somebody in there to replace a pump or, but the 1,000-gallon tank there would easily handle 2-3 days worth of waste at full normal use.
And the only other thing relative to the pool is that we could condition whatever we determine to be the proper way to maintain the pool and keep it in perpetuity, and then it would just sit on the deed. And so as long as the pool was there, that condition could sit there, and if he decides he wanted to sell the home, then the next owner is aware of that condition. So that's usually how we handle something like that. Anything else?
So we just have the elevation, ACEC elevation question.
ACEC elevation questions, and that's about it.
Well, I mean, just thinking about it quickly here, I mean, if it is in fact 10, I think it would be well advised not to encourage no actual construction within the ACEC.
Within the ACEC. I don't think that's an unreasonable request, actually. I would agree with you there.
And this, you've got a tree line here, or a proposed tree line, sort of similar. But what's the edge, wetland edge look like?
This is wide open, you can see right out.
No trees, nothing.
I think it's like a single ornamental tree, you know, sporadically, but there's no tree line.
Looks like nothing there. Looks like I can't tell from this imagery, but maybe is there a salt pan right down in front?
That's a tree shed.
There's one tree shed, there's 2 trees here, spot.
I mean, I think the detention basin is an asset. I mean, there's no overflow provision for that whatsoever.
Yeah, there's no overflow provision because in this particular case, it's oversized for the intended use. And if we were ever experiencing a 100-year storm, something that would produce more than what this thing would actually be able to handle, you're talking about elevation 13 floods, the waters are coming up. I mean, it's not gonna do anything at that point. It's more there for the 2, the 5, and the 10-year storm.
Take care of the driveway.
Yeah.
I'd be hoping they were not right about the 13.
Yeah, it was a significant change that really kind of bit a lot of people overnight real hard, that change in.
But you know, it was hard to fight, knowing that the Plum Island Turnpike is 11.5.
Yeah.
And there's been 3.5 feet of water over the top of it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to,
I got
hard to deny it.
Little laugh earlier tonight when you made the comment about the 2-foot wall of water from the,
V-zone to X zone.
how many sites I've dealt with down with Salisbury Beach where that line bisects a property, and on this side it's B-zone, on this side it's, you know, elevation 9. Well, B-zone is a lot different than.
I didn't know water walled up that way,
Yeah,
but I guess
this
it
water,
does.
water on this side of the house is going in the window, on this side it's dry.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So I guess it would be the recommendation of this board to keep this hearing open until which time we can straighten out the ACEC question to see if we're gonna ask for a slight movement to the front of the structure. Is that fair?
I think.
So can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Just to educate me a little bit, so if the ECAC line turns out to be 10, which is this contour here, there's literally nothing that can happen in that line. It's.
No. You could make the argument that you are not going to have any adverse impact on that area down there. The burden's with you, so certainly you could make that argument to us.
So you're not saying that no work can happen there, you're just suggesting that we should try to minimize it?
I know of no prohibition to work in the ACEC.
And does any change have to go back to the state?
Yeah, you know, but if the change was that you're moving the house back 3, 4, 5 feet, whatever you determine to do, if there's a minor change there, yeah, you want to send them a copy of the plan. But it's not like you're moving out over the river. It's not like you're moving in a direction that they would balk at. If they have a problem with your new plan, they would certainly have a problem with your old plan.
So at this point, yeah, we would update the plan, submit it to the state, and then the commission could move forward without waiting for the state, because we already have a file number, and they've already said no comments to this. So if we're moving it away, there's no reason to wait.
The only thing that we have to wait for before we write an order of conditions is that number. Once that number is issued, we can write the order. As a matter of fact, there's some guidance that tells us not to use the no comments from DEP yet as a reason for not, closing a public hearing.
Yeah, I've had them closed when they still stay under review for 6 months.
Yeah, it's really just not supposed to do that, that's not proper.
So that's not something the state would have already taken into account to.
What the state does is when they take this in, that DEP number is not their approval or disapproval of the project. If they see something on there that really glares at them, they're apt to make a comment. Sometimes it just says under review, sometimes it says no comment, even if they may make a comment later on. What they wait for is our order of conditions. There's nothing, they don't know whether we're protecting their interest in the act until we write that order and send it to them. So that's really their appeal time. That's the time that they'd step up and, if a neighbor doesn't appeal, if they step in on their own, usually it's an intervention. So they intervene, they send you a letter, they send us a letter, kind of stops process. And they say to you that if you're willing to make these changes and bring them back before the Conservation Commission, and the Conservation Commission is good with them, then they will allow the order to stand with the changes, and they will withdraw their intervention and give us authority back over the project. If one of the parties decides that they don't like that, then they will keep that intervention, and then you'll go through a process with them. You go to adjudicatory hearing at that level.
Not a fun process.
No, it's no picnic.
So in the past, when someone has asked to cross the ECAC line,
It's
Has
area
that
of,
happened?
it's area of critical environmental concern.
make note of that, honey.
All right, forget it. Go ahead,
So
form your question.
Have applicants in the past performed work outside that line, have they been successful, or is that a task that is a fool's errand?
My experience with it is that they were already within that area, so they're modifying their raise and reconstruct. They're already there, and there's no way to get them out of it. My experience with it is, well, no, I gotta refine that a little bit. You're down on Plum Island also, but my experience with that has been mostly on Plum Bush, where you've had an existing structure there. Where they call it an area of critical environmental concern, and there's no real compelling reason to be out there and in it, why would we want, we're the Conservation Commission, so why would we want you in it if there's an option that isn't a totally unpalatable option?
I think that was kind of where I was going, where you're having, if I remember correctly, is that you have an attached garage, and maybe if you're gonna need to get out of that, area of critical environmental concern, you shift things back and live with one garage, and make that attached garage actually, your garage. And currently, you could attach it, move the site plan back, and have one garage, and, build this into the building plan. We'll see what the number comes back as, but that would be maybe like a more conservative plan of action, again, is where I was going.
So I guess, Steve, to maybe give you a little more definition, it sounds like we're likely to ask you to move that construction to the 10-foot contour and get it out of the ACEC. That's the ask, that's not a demand, and then the burden is always with your side of the table anyway to show that you're not gonna have any adverse impact on that ACEC or its ability to provide.
Yeah, one thing I'm just thinking about, what do you picture the roof line being there, and, what's gonna happen to your roof water and all that? Sometimes people have come in with plans to, not let a lot of roof water go down the slope, run into the marsh or something like that.
As far as putting gutters on that side, catching the water and not allowing.
Well, I don't know, things like that, if you say, well, we're gonna try to avoid discharging a lot of roof water directly into the ACEC, then that makes your project, it sounds better.
And it's, in the long run, it's much better for your project anyways, because the minute you start to disturb down there, and the minute you start to throw some fresh water down there that it's not used to, and you change that chemistry down there and you make it a little more brackish and maybe a little less salt, And then the next thing you know, you got a whole bunch of Phragmites started at your interface line there, because now you've got this area of brackish water that they're really happy with. And you know, you've made that disturbance and you're throwing it down there because you've got this impervious surface that you've added up there. So that's one of the things that, you know, when I say the burden shifts with you to show that you're not gonna impact that ACEC, just a small example of how you could be impacting it in a negative way.
We got some stuff to talk about.
Okay.
I think we're the longest hearing of the whole night.
Well, interesting project.
So it's only full new house construction too, we did, right? I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah,
for the
so-
most part, yeah.
Do we have another full house? We do? Yeah, we
Somebody get that on.
Okay. Oh.
Hoping it was gonna be so late that we're so tired that we just gonna like slide through.
We get sharper as the night goes on. I've only been here since 8, so.
Last one, this is nothing like the last one, let's invent some new stuff to talk about.
Yeah, there you go.
Actually, I do have something to talk about.
Good.
Okay, I'm sure you're excited.
I can hardly wait.
I got one for you too.
So, it would be my recommendation that we grant a continuance, that I recommend a continuance to the July 18th meeting.
So,
Second.
Agreeable to the applicant?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks. You
You
also.
too.
All right. We have a request for a certificate of compliance from Stephen Peabody at 1451st Street, DEP number 50-1158. I was down there today, did a site visit down there. Mr. Peabody came in and sort of warned me before I went down there that one corner of his deck was going to be closer to the sand than we usually allow. So, let's see if I can sort of tell you where it is. So this section of this back deck, this corner right here of this back deck, the dune system comes down and falls off here. You can see there's a truck here, it falls off here, but it comes right around this side like this. He picked up a good 2.5 feet of sand in that northeaster we had, and I believe he did for 2 reasons. I went down to Plum Island Center right after that storm and stood next to that kiosk with the gutter line about shoulder height. So I knew it blew in that way. And today, as I viewed this, I also walked out here, and someone just to the north of the right-of-way here had a snow fence up in front of their property. It's sticking up about that far, and that happened in one storm down there, and it can happen like that. So I believe Mr. Peabody that he had that distance when it was permitted and when it was constructed. It just doesn't happen to be there now. His finish around there was a good 50% open. He did a good job with that, and it would be my recommendation that we grant the certificate of compliance. All those in favor? Aye. And the only other piece of business that I have tonight is that at the last selectmen's meeting, it was discussed, they had a discussion around the rights of way on Plum Island. The selectmen have asked the Conservation Commission if we would be agreeable to taking the money that we have left in our account, which is $5,000 at this point, and applying it to sand for Plum Island.
How much do we get?
Jim, what do you,
Ballpark.
yeah, what do you got? You got 28 yards, 26 yards in a 40-yarder just with weight, and you're, what are you gonna be, about $28 a yard?
I don't know.
So you're talking maybe $600 for a 40-yarder, which is gonna give you a yield of somewhere between 22 and 28 yards.
So you're talking a substantial amount.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it would not necessarily, I said to the administrator that if the town chose, they could probably make it pay where it doesn't always. If they wanted to take and stockpile some sand, they could use that money. They could use a portion of the sand now and they could stockpile the rest of it. When you do that, it makes for expensive sand because, as you well know, the minute you dump it on the ground, you add another $10 a yard to it easy. Just for handling it again.
And you lose at least 5%.
And you use, exactly, throwing some of it down. So I don't know how much they intend to put down there, but I would ask the board if they would recommend an amount up to and not exceeding the $5,000 amount. Yes, Ben?
How much money do we get? How often do we get it, and what do we usually spend it on?
We get $5,000 a year.
We haven't spent any yet.
Yeah,
we're on the fiscal year, so we're about to flip.
Yes,
Right.
we're just about to flip. There is some discussion about adding much more to that budget in the upcoming years, somewhere around $10,000 or $15,000. I don't know if that's going to happen. There was another $5 put in at the annual town meeting, so as of July 1st, there's another $5,000 in that account.
What do we usually use it for?
Usually we run right up against June, and I'm scrambling to do something with it. I got to admit, I'm not very good at that. That's spending money is something I need some help with. So
Fair enough.
you're willing to do that.
Well, we are.
But I think it's typically to improve the retina.
It is for beach maintenance. Yes, I should. Dan's right.
Signage.
Yes.
And we used some money for signs.
Yeah, we did emergency access signs front and back last year or the year before, so we spent a portion of it on that, those types of things.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just, you got questions?
Yep.
I mean, I have, reservations about this dumping sand over there and thinking it's gonna be a good right of way, but, I mean, we've got the money to go towards it. I don't see a problem there.
You don't see any other needs?
There's no glaring needs. There's two right-of-ways that folks are having problems with right now, and it's a problem for
But I'm
selectmen.
thinking other needs that we might possibly spend anything on.
There is one other need, and where July 1st is so soon, I'm not as concerned, is that there's come a real push to clean the beach also. And as you may or may not know, we have become a real attraction for the plovers, especially around from 80 Northern Boulevard, which is 23rd Street, to maybe 41st Street. They've really found that area. If those folks want that cleaned, then we're gonna need a plover monitor to go down there when the town's down there, find those birds, know where they are when we're doing that work, and to stay there while that work's being done. So it may be another need relative to beach management that.
But nothing in this fiscal year?
Nothing's pressing, no, Jim. There's no signage. Right now, I think they're trying to determine exactly what they're gonna put back for signage. When they did the Plum Island Center, everything around there was
You
taken
heard some of
down.
that conversation I had with James
Yeah.
about it.
And we're going from 5,000 this year and previous years to 10,000 next year?
So.
For the next fiscal year, not this coming fiscal year, is 5. There has been some discussion. There's nothing definitive yet, so that's not money in the bank at this point. And then it's certainly subject to appropriation at town meeting.
So the appropriation at town meeting, you're saying that they appropriated our 5 for next year already?
Yes.
So we're getting that.
Yes, that is done. That's already
That's a
done.
given.
Yeah.
The
Right.
10 is the following.
So
Potentially, 10, 15, or even more, depending on what the administrator thinks the needs may be and what the budget will bear.
This is just south of the circle?
Which
Which way we're talking about?
Which is that's the southernmost.
Yeah, that looks like it's that groin just to the other side of it, but
That's the one at the groin.
then that's Dartmouth. All right, that's Dartmouth. The next one down is Harvard. The trouble with this in here is you've got rock here. If this is Dartmouth, it's hard to tell with this, but if this is Dartmouth,
Yeah.
there's rock here and there's rock here. So this one, they put sand up on here. There's so much wave energy in this corner, in this elbow right here, that it washes up and over the top of this, and as it does, it takes all the sand with it. They got a little ahead of themselves down there, and they put some sand on that right away down there. And that next night, we had that, beginning of that 2.5 day northeaster we got, and took just about every bit of it away.
Sure.
So they lost all that.
So,
And so what they'll do is they'll usually ask me, starting about a month before now, when time's right to put sand down there. Generally, after you get by those Mother's Day astronomical tides, you're pretty much in a calmer pattern. Your wave energy is gentle and it's pushing sand up on the beach and not removing it as it does in the winter pattern. And so I go down there and take a look. I look at where the rack line is. I look at the depth of the beach and determine whether the tide line's getting up there. Take a look at the tides and see if they've gone by. And then I can make a somewhat educated guess on whether it's appropriate to put sand there. Could you put $2,000 worth of sand on there and lose it the next week? Absolutely, it's Plum Island, so.
annual exercise?
So it's an annual exercise, and it's likely to be an annual exercise. Because we have some armoring down there now, there's gonna be a problem with downdrift beaches and trying to keep sediment source down there. And the top of it, you've got homes on now, so the dune's not gonna be allowed to dry and correct back this way. You've got rock here underneath, and you've got a beach that's gonna come right up and keep eroding at the base of that. So there may become a point where that is not a viable right-of-way at all to get to the beach.
I think that's where I was going.
Very well could be, Ben.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's written into the beach management plan. Most of us at Town Hall understand that these rights-of-way aren't gonna, all of them, be opened and maintained every year. It's been very difficult to convey that to the public.
And it's a big area, you know, from, below Blue there,
Yeah.
all the way up to the center.
Those two rights-of-way and then the temple one that's down there are really the only three on that end. And they do get some heavy use. There's a lot of people down there that use those. So generally speaking, I support that, especially the Harvard Way one. The Dartmouth I have a harder time with. I'm concerned that you're gonna spend money down there and it's gonna go right into the water. Harvard, I can support doing a certain amount of maintenance on Harvard Way. I can add also too that once the sand goes down there, the neighbors are proactive down there. They've got a jute mat that they had Netco make for them. They also took some smaller wraps of the material and made some small pillows, maybe 3 inches in diameter, and took and laced those into the mat. And then they put they put a couple of posts in there and a rope that they can sort of pull themselves up the banking, because it's pretty steep there. Even with a little sand there, it's gonna continue to be steep. Yeah, it does. And certainly when they put that mat down there, what happens, it's so steep that without that mat, I don't think it would be very long with foot traffic before all the sand would be at the bottom. With this, when they protect it, yeah, it does a great job of keeping that sand in place. So the neighborhood does, you know, again, I support that right away. They chip in, and to be fair, the neighbors that got
If we don't have any outstanding needs, why not? Given the fact that it's the 20th of June, what the heck, you couldn't spend it probably if you wanted to. Oh, I could spend it tomorrow.
Well, you can also, you can encumber it also, so, yeah, really all you have to do is encumber it, so there's ways, but again, I think that this is I think this is proper, and we have been asked by the Board of Selectmen to do it, so if there's no compelling reason why we shouldn't, it would be my recommendation that we do. So,
I'll second.
all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Ben, you said you had something for the board?
Yeah, backtracking to last meeting, by state law, you can't have a wake zone. Anything within 150 feet of the bank of the Great Marsh is in a wake zone, by state law.
Anything within any channel within 150 feet, is that what
Yes.
you mean?
There's anything within, whether it's high tide, channel, low tide, anything within 150 feet of the side of the marsh is a no-wake zone. So by state law, that whole area we were arguing about last meeting
Is
should
no
be a
argument.
no-wake zone, straight out till you get past Dole Island.
How wide's the river there, do you know, Bill?
So they
Just
have
to-
a,
Just to get, yeah, just to get,
how wide is the whole river?
yes.
I don't know how wide the whole river is.
Well, I'm wondering how wide the
bar-
channel
The
is.
bar channel is within 150.
Okay.
I
And
think the issue is more one of enforcement.
Well,
Rather than,
it-
we need one, but we don't have a no-wake zone.
And so,
It's like,
yeah.
there's no good way to enforce the no-wake zone.
So they even have a map showing, so, sorry, hold on, it's gonna rotate, that whole blue outline border buffer to the river is a no-wake zone, and so you can see it's actually, you know, where there's now people fly through around this corner, that's, should
Well,
be a
that
complete.
closed right in,
It's,
isn't it?
yeah, that's a complete no-wake zone, straight across the channel there. So, by state law,
I saw that, yeah.
yeah, it's all no-wake zone.
I will let the chief, I will let the harbor master know.
I
that.
talked to Valonis before I figured this out.
Okay.
And he said that the chief had said something to him about it, but he sounded very unenthused about any prospects of enforcement and basically said that if we tried to enforce it, we're gonna get lynched.
Well,
Not that those words, but
I sent
significant
about
blowback.
I sent about a 1 or 2 paragraph letter to the chief after that meeting, and I addressed the concerns, and I said that at this time we weren't demanding it, but that it would be a prudent, it'd be a good idea if they take a look at it. Reminded them that this fall we're going to be meeting again, start to meet with Ipswich and that ACEC group that we put together a while ago, to come up with a plan for theirs, so if they were proactive and address some of these things on their own, especially the marinas down there, then it would probably go much, it would be better for them to be proactive.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so I mean, the funny part is, yeah, and so basically only legal, state legal, no wake zone is like when you come out of the mooring field, before it makes that cut over to south to the channel bank. Once you get within 150 feet of that channel, then.
Okay, that's pretty clear cut then.
Yeah.
It's not really an option.
This, technically, no.
No.
So.
All right, thank you for that.
Yeah, somebody mentioned it to me, and I was like, is that, I didn't know it was true either. So I went and
didn't-
looked it up, and I was like, okay, well, there you go.
Takes care of that, it makes it pretty definitive.
Yeah, it's not a lot of fun. I've done it like 4 times in the last 2 weeks and just slow trotted down the river, but it's 10 minutes. It's not the end of the world. The greenheads aren't out yet though.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah,
The midges are out in force.
yeah, the midges have been back.
Yeah, they have.
Thank you, Ben.
You're welcome.
Jim, you said you had something also?
I feel there's something off the wall, but what reminded me of it was our talk about the plunge pool and different chemicals. But a man named Rolf didn't get his first name, from High Road, works for Northeast Nurseries. And they're big into irrigation and that type of stuff, among other things. They don't just do plants. And he was telling me about a new chemical I got, H3O.
Okay.
It's organic. You spray it on the lawn. It draws moisture out of the air to help keep the lawn moist. I asked him what was in it, he didn't know my teeth.
3 atoms of hydrogen, 1 of oxygen, that's what's in it.
That's what he's implying.
It's the only thing I can say.
It's really a commercial name and not a chemical name.
It draws the
No kidding.
moisture out of the air.
And then how does it get it into the earth?
It's on the plant. It's sprayed out of the plant as a chemical.
Gotcha, okay.
Now, is it like a sponge that,
Well,
I
this does kind of ring a bell. Some of the fertilizer manufacturers like Scott in that claim that if you buy their fertilizer, you need to water less. Same kind of concept.
Maybe,
There's some kind
maybe.
of desiccant or something in there that,
I was talking about grass seed, never mind,
And that popped up, huh?
and that popped up.
yeah. But
That's
yeah,
interesting.
They
I've
mix-
seen that
They custom mix their own seed.
advertisements,
I
yeah.
didn't know that. You could go to them with a blend. They'll mix it with your name on it too.
Oh, no, make it your blend.
Oh,
huh?
sure. Oh, sure, test them. Well, if you get a machine like that, you have to cater to make it worthwhile, I suppose. How many people are gonna go to them for custom mix? No, that's all I have.
That's interesting, thank you.
Doug, did you wanna discuss the appointments?
Yes, who's up, just Ben?
Ben, you, and John Hartnett,
Okay.
and Sue.
I don't know that, I think that Susan, was going to send something into selectmen. I sent something into selectmen, did you?
I wasn't told what to do.
Okay.
Jennifer said,
Yeah, we thought that Ellen might be sending something out.
Well, if they've already done the appointments, then Ellen would send something out. They did ask for input at some point. I guess I'll have to ask Ellen whether they've already done the appointments or not.
I don't think so,
Is
the
John
call
gonna
I
give it
got
up,
today
or-
from her.
Okay, then if they haven't done them yet, Ben, what I would suggest that you do is that you send just an email into the Board of Selectmen and say that if you do have an interest in continuing on with the board, that you have an interest in that, and
you guys second me? What?
not yet.
Okay, not yet. Good, all right. I'll keep doing it.
It's because I think what you did, you filled an appointment,
I did,
with someone so that you didn't have a very long time, to that one, and so what this would be is this would be a regular 3-year appointment.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't expecting that because it was.
Is Johnny gonna stay on?
I don't think so. I think that because of the capacity that he works in, I think it makes him somewhat uncomfortable to
I know he
sometimes
was
be on
having
both
to step back
sides.
more
Yeah,
and more, and
yeah, and so he always made it clear that he would certainly come in if we needed him, but that it would be easier for him if, and in many cases, like many of the, I don't want to use names, but some of the people even that were in the audience tonight are people that use him on a regular basis, so he gets up and he recuses himself and they come in, and so he works for a lot of the
oh, yeah,
places
oh, yeah.
around here, does a lot of work.
I
Anything
thought
else?
we adjourned.
Do I have a second for that?
Yes.
All those in favor? Aye.